Afternoon. I'm going to call to order the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners Workshop. Today is Monday, April 20th, 2026. It's 1 p.m. If you will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now we'd like to take a moment of silence and reflect on our men and women who are serving here and abroad to protect our great United States. All right, welcome everybody. We're glad to have such a nice audience here today. We're going to start out with item number 4 today. That is our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee providing us their annual report with recommendations. I think Mr. Hagedis is coming up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Joe Hagedis, Director for Health and Human Services with Flagler County. And with me, I've got Simone Kinney, Planner with Growth Management. We are here today to review the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee's 2025 Annual Report of Recommendations. You may recall in November, this board received that committee's report, or excuse me, in December. In November, the committee finalized their report and held a public hearing to adopt it. And then it was brought before this board in December, as I mentioned, where you reviewed the recommendations and requested coming back for further workshop and discussion so that we could dive a little deeper. So that's why we're here today. We've got our 7 recommendations from the committee. So hopefully Simone and I will break up going back and forth on these. We'll kind of give you an overview and welcome any feedback or questions and direction there. And to start us off with recommendation 1 is to formalize a policy for ongoing AHAC review of housing cost impacts, and Simone will take that.
Good afternoon. So this was our first recommendation from our AHAC committee. Ongoing review from AHAC for ongoing housing costs is required by state statutes. So that's why it was the first recommendation from the AHAC committee. It's needed when there is an ordinance, regulation, or policy that could affect the cost of housing. Staff took a look at this and determined when it would come into play. Most likely, at least for growth management, that would be changes to the land development code, specific policies that may increase or decrease the cost of housing. We determined it would most likely not apply to specific development applications, whether that be, a rezoning or, for example, this evening you have a semi-public use. We wouldn't calculate the impacts to housing on something like that, but rather, are we changing specific building requirements through our land development code? As for the screening requirement, again, that would be up to staff to evaluate what or if those housing impacts exist. If so, we would create or compile a brief packet to provide to AHAC so they're informed about what those changes are and what those housing impacts may be like. Again, it's up to AHAC. They have the options most likely to review at their monthly meetings, or they could review it on their own and provide written feedback and or attend the county commission meetings. If there is written feedback, staff would document all of these and include them in your packets. As for governing body integration, we would put the AHAC summary, if any, in your agenda packets before you receive them. And then if there are housing impacts, we would put those in there as well. And then you as the governing body may choose to incorporate or change your decisions based on the recommendations from AHAC or from the housing impact statement. You are not required to. State statute just requires that you have seen the information and have reviewed it before you've made your decision. As for record keeping, Housing Services would maintain all the AHAC packets and minutes. And so, I guess to summarize, the deliverable to you coming out of this, should you choose to recommend adopting this recommendation, is that staff would create a formalized written policy going through all the explicit details and bring that back to you, either through a specific workshop or just through a meeting for you to make a decision. I guess before we move forward, are there any questions or comments on recommendation number 1?
Anyone? No, we're good, thank you.
Recommendation 2 was to adopt a policy for the review and disposition of the public lands for affordable housing. So this is sort of a 2-part requirement. The first, the state requires us to identify all of the publicly owned or county-owned land and identify what could be usable for affordable housing, and to advertise this list on our website. We're currently compliant with that. The second part, which I believe is more of AHAC's recommendation, is then the disposition process. So if we have a piece of property that we've identified as suitable for affordable housing, how are we going to then dispose of it or convey it for that purpose? So that can look, there's a couple different methods. You know, we could do a competitive request for proposal from affordable housing developers. We can convey just fee simple. Maybe that conveyance comes with the right of first refusal clause, that if they end up selling it, the county has the first choice to purchase it back. Maybe that looks like a long-term ground lease. Another aspect of this to consider is that with our county-owned parcels that are not suitable themselves to build affordable housing, they can still be used to support affordable housing. One example of that would be to sell one of those parcels, and then we could use the funds from that to support affordable housing. Most likely we could put that money in a housing trust fund, which is another recommendation that you'll see in a minute. So for example, if there's a specific piece of property that right now is not in a state to be used for affordable housing, or maybe isn't feasible, maybe the site needs to be graded or a driveway put in, and at that point a nonprofit would find it feasible to come in and build affordable housing, we could use the funds to do that for site prep. That's just one example. Any questions or comments on that? Again, this would come back to you as a fully realized written policy for you to read and decide on.
Can I just ask a question? Palm Coast is a big part of this plan, obviously, because it's a joint plan. Palm Coast, have you reviewed what Palm Coast has done on this item? I know it's the same recommended item with Palm Coast. They've been working on it throughout the year, correct?
I believe so, but I've not seen their version of it.
Okay. So Palm Coast is very much farther along in this process than we are, just for the record. Thank you.
Question of process here today. We've reviewed these prior. I mean, you have the dates of when we reviewed these, and it seems like we're just reviewing the same things we reviewed back in December. So I'm not sure what you're gaining from today's discussion, because you're still going to come back to us with more flushed recommendations. So just kind of explain what you're hoping beyond what we did in December to get from us.
Sure. We understood that your decision in December was to get more, concrete information from us, a better idea of what these specific policies would look like. And then should you choose to adopt the recommendations, then we would start actually writing the policies.
Okay, so you want us to give you, at the end of this presentation, which one of the recommendations you're advancing?
Correct.
The board is advancing. Do we want to take these one at a time and do that then, or are we waiting till the end, Madam Chair?
I think I'd prefer to go as we go through each one to determine, but
So we can go back to
there's
one.
a matrix at the end to show us, should we go back through each one? I think so.
I would think we could flush them out, and then additionally, if we're running, the way I see it, if we're running short of time, knowing what we can always, if we get stuck on one of these and there's a long conversation and we know that we're running short on time, we can bring this back at another workshop. I just don't want to have, again, I don't know what the discussion will look like, and don't want to, at the end, be pushing the other items for quick discussion if.
Is
so
there
maybe-
one that the Affordable Housing Board is recommending over the others, or
All 7,
recommending all 7?
all 7.
I was going to say,
And
I
1
know
and
they
2
all
are
seven,
statutes.
a few of them are statutorily required, so that's
Yes.
probably not their priority.
Right.
Because that is a statutory obligation. So outside of that, I think
The ones that are statute,
public lands, land trust.
wanted you to see
incentives.
where staff wants to go with it.
Okay,
So at the AHAC meetings, we can't do anything more than discuss, we can't set the policy. The staff has to bring it to us. So there's a lot of discussion. It held up several long discussions at AHAC. But their only goal is to bring it to us. It's not to it's not to make the policy. We can't do that. The staff has to do that, to show us how it fits into what they're working on with, which is at this point mostly planning. So
so we'll go back to recommendation 1 for just a minute. Recommendation 1 is so you can be in compliance, correct? So that one would go forward, correct? Because we're trying to catch the
Yeah,
statute.
I guess the question I have is, this will fall on staff. We'll have to do the analysis. So staff levels, we currently have sufficient staff to cover this additional workload.
It would be, we would write into the policy that the level of analysis would be dependent on staff's capabilities and resources. There are some items that may be easier for staff to get a specific per house cost change. There may be some items where it'll have to be a little bit more of an estimate, but we would incorporate that into the policy itself.
I think it would fall upon you to prepare some sort of metric as to how you're going to do this without, becoming accurate to a certain degree. But I think the idea is just a general, is it going to cost or is it going to reduce, and a level of impact. So I just don't want to, knowing our limited and effective staff in the planning department, and then, so it will, anything that, say it's an ordinance that through our land development code changes, right? This will, when we do our land development code update, this will be a heavy part of that. And then it'll just be a part of staff's, right? Because we've been doing this for a couple of years. It's been front and center. As you do a staff report for an agenda item, it will be part of the staff report that accompanies the agenda item. And is that it then, right? That becomes the information
Correct.
from
A
staff's
line item
reviews
on
to the
the staff
commission
report,
as part of
that's-
the review of that ordinance. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to make sure we've got adequate time to contribute to that, especially, as we approach land development code update.
but they don't go to AHAC right now. So what AHAC is asking for is and we only meet once a month. We meet all year long. We don't have a break. AHAC is asking for a time, so it gets onto their agenda.
AHAC will be provided the information. We can't hold items up
Correct.
so that the item is reviewed by AHAC at their once-a-month meeting, just for statutory timing requirements on certain items, as well as, it happens rarely, but sometimes AHAC doesn't meet quorum, so that would push, the item back another
We're
month.
not going to hold it up, but
But the information would be provided in a one-pager, a half-pager, a little packet provided to AHAC so they can understand what's going on and they have the opportunity to provide feedback.
Right, yeah, because that is another critical timeline is that review process and the expectations of review between that. So they'll have an opportunity to provide you some feedback at the meeting.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Or written.
Yes, I was going to say the alternative for that is encouraging their involvement and participation at the public hearings that are held regardless, and that's their last opportunities.
Right, and I think that, barring, say, there's no quorum at the AHAC meeting, that would be the only option you have is coming to the public hearing.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you want consensus?
I have one quick question. Is there a time sensitive for all of this? What's the timeline for this?
November of last
November?
year.
Of last year? Yeah, that's what I've been hearing continually, and I like to see us moving forward as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So any adoptions or any recommendations that are formally adopted, we will aim to work through this year up until November and try and complete those by then. The statutory ones, they're already in statute, so
Of course.
sooner the better, probably, so that we don't have liability that way. But absolutely within this year is the goal. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we like consensus for recommendation number 1?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, we have consensus for 1. Number 2, we already do a portion of this, correct? We identified on the website, I think.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So you're now asking for the annual review process
For the disposition process.
for the disposition process, okay. Who
We
will
don't have
s-
many, but when we publicly notice them, people call and ask, well, how do we buy it? There's no system for how to move that from affordable land to being used buildable property.
I was going to ask, how do we set the cost for that, or is there a cost? There's talks about a long-term ground lease.
The method
I
of
mean,
sale.
The
the
county
method of
has a
sale.
process in place for anybody that wants to inquire about purchasing county property. That applies to any, unused county parcel. But this would clarify a few things, I think, because within city limits, there's possible avenues to work with the city governments, either Bunnell, Palm Coast, on disposing it with them, or identifying, right? We could identify certain nonprofits that work with Habitat or others that we could work with. So I'm okay with this one. I'm familiar with the past process where we've advertised them and they've been publicly noticed. But most of them have constraints. They're not moving because they have site constraints, utilities, or wetlands. So that's why most of them don't move.
Well, and nowhere in here does it say, at least I couldn't find it, it says that we would do a review of what we think the cost is, or what we should sell
The
the property
appraised
for.
value?
The what?
The
The
value.
appraised value?
Appraised value. Yeah, it doesn't say
And
anything about that.
there's nothing in here, and there's nothing that says someone can't buy it, and then there's no
No.
restriction on it that they can't turn around and
Turn
flip
around
it.
and sell it.
But when they
So,
write the policy for
When they
it,
do,
could
that's
build
what we're
those.
they'll
asking
build
them.
it in.
No, I
Right,
think we ought
that's
to
what
say
they're
something about
asking for.
appraised value.
Right,
Appraised value for
Yep.
sure.
yep.
Sale restrictions.
And then restricting, I know Palm Coast was concerned about people buying them and flipping them. The goal here is for them to own it and then first right of refusal to let us buy it back, or have some kind of a system that protects the county, because we can't just be, I know we don't have but one or two of them, but as we grow or as things change, we want to make sure that that land
We
is
have a
being
second right of
used for a
refusal, yes.
long-term
Absolutely.
situation. Yeah. And to keep housing affordable, right?
Correct?
We go in under value because we want them to have it or to build on it, but
Should we also have the rights of their project,
Yep.
to oversee their project as well?
No, well, I don't know about that.
Make
but-
sure it fits to the confinements, and I'm just asking, the confinements of the requirements.
I could
How does
see
that
maybe a
follow?
monitoring component built in there, so maybe
Yes.
an annual monitoring or
Yes.
something along those lines to ensure affordability and
Correct.
target
For
population.
the means of what we're using the land for, right? Okay.
Okay, so we have consensus for recommendation number 2 at this time to move forward.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes?
Yes. Okay, on to item 3.
Right, on to number 3. This recommendation is regarding the establishment of representation and support for the Community Land Trust Initiative. If you're not familiar, community land trusts are typically nonprofits that hold land in trust for the community, while homes on the land are owned by the residents. So the nonprofit owns the land, the resident owns the building. The homes remain affordable through long-term ground leases and resale restrictions, like we were just talking about. And the model preserves affordability over time instead of losing units after resale. The AHAC discussed CLTs or land trusts as a tool for maintaining long-term affordability and can be used with donated or publicly owned land consistent with local disposition policies. So this could be another option for those public lands, is to give them to a land trust that then in perpetuity maintains their affordability and benefit for future need and for subsidy. And again, that subsidy stays with the property. The role of our electeds here is to recommend representation, to signal policy interest and support exploring the CLTs. So if the board was interested, we could look into developing a community land trust. There are models throughout the state. There would be an official representative, typically a board structure. And if that advances, the official can help inform the BOCC decisions on land dispositions, RFP, and agreements. So again, there would be representation just like on your other committees and boards to help guide that land trust's future endeavors.
Would that apply to Palm Coast, or do we have to get together with Palm Coast and combine one land trust?
They would have to do their own, or, the land trust would have to coordinate to operate in Palm Coast, to purchase properties and that kind of thing. So it wouldn't be, we might have to have a separate or a joint land trust of some sort. I could see it getting a little sticky together, so maybe a separate, just off the top of my head, seems like the best idea in terms of coming up with some. And it doesn't have to be for multiple properties. A land trust can be just for one property. So it can be creative almost in how that's developed.
Joe, is there any kind of composition in this where it talks about the maintenance of these things?
Well, that's a big part of the land trust, is maintaining the quality of the property and the, ongoing sale value and quality of life there.
Let me use the
So,
word upkeep.
Yes,
Like
absolutely, yes.
Like
They're-
a leasehold, right? Like instead of
Yes.
fee simple, they back out the cost of the land and then they pay a small lease fee for
Fee,
the
right.
land. So they own the property on it.
Yes,
They can't move it. They're restricted to it. Just, there's a lot of that already, but they're just privately held.
owned, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
And our board is not, it doesn't belong to the county. It's a land, it's a separate entity.
Nonprofit.
So it's a nonprofit that is formed in order to do the trust part of this. We would just be there, or someone from the board would be there as a representative, but there's no commitment to staff, or it's just, they're just asking for the okay to move forward in trying to find out more about the land trust, right?
See if there's a nonprofit partner that's viable.
Yeah.
See what model might be applicable and most beneficial in our community. Sure.
If we go forward with this, can we also find out what kind of liabilities the county has, if any,
Right.
for entering into these type of groups?
Well, and again, I think the best model would be, as we are here, right? So somebody you serve on a board, as a board member to certain organizations, it'd be a similar type of setup, right? Where we're involved in that way, but the other liabilities and responsibilities are distinct and separate there. But absolutely, yes, we could make sure that.
And then find out if there could just be one trust for both. I think we can merge them. I think,
City and,
yeah.
we can look for sure.
Any questions about recommendation number 3?
So in this process, land is the critical component. So we either need a partner, it's either county land that we contribute or a partner that has land. So if this isn't a quick fix, this takes time.
Not by any means, yes, absolutely.
And as far as oversight, again, ask the question about either staff and legal's oversight into this process and making sure we have the capability to invest staff and legal time in this process.
That would definitely be a commitment, for sure. It would take staff time, meeting time, another committee, another group. up and
Well,
running.
my thing is, I don't know if we're really going to have land at the county level. We've been utilizing all of our land for capital projects, and I just don't even see this as viable on our side, but
I think, right, we always say tools in the toolbox. I don't want to necessarily
Discard it. Yeah.
just scrap it, but maybe we can, with a little bit of, some best practices or other examples from
There are
around
models
that,
out there.
bring those back just for additional impact and see. But I agree that there's, there's some issues still that need to be tweaked out. So as a concept, maybe continue looking at it, but I know this one's going to take time.
Well, this one also, AHAC can do some of the legwork as well. I know there's several people, several members that are interested in just finding out if it works for us or not.
is there consensus on number 3?
I would say as a continuing to look at the concept and bringing back some examples and maybe some input from legal.
I'll say take a pass for now, is what you're saying, right?
No,
No, he's
He
going
says
to
move it
let them
forward.
We
continue
need
to
to keep
manage.
it in there.
Continuation.
We need to keep it in there, but let's not put it in stone.
Still
Concept.
develop.
It's a
As we
concept.
prioritize your time investment, right? Maybe that's the next concept is when we get done, prioritize these. So as you work toward November, you have,
Absolutely.
you know which ones to work on first.
That's the plan, for sure. Absolutely. All right, well, with that, we'll move into number 4. I believe that's Simone.
So the 4th recommendation was to look at developing an inclusionary zoning ordinance with incentives. Inclusionary zoning is the idea of encouraging developers to incorporate affordable housing sort of interspersed within their developments. The goal being that there's no one area that's designated as affordable housing. It should be integrated with the other single-family dwellings or apartments or whatever they are, and it doesn't look any different. This would be voluntary on the part of the developer in exchange for incentives, whether that be flexibility from dimensional requirements or density bonuses. The policy that you would adopt could set this at 10, 20, 30% of the overall units being affordable. So an example would be a developer wants to build, say, 100 single-family homes on 30 acres with a future land use of residential low density. That has a maximum density of 3 units per acre. So at 100 units, they're just over that threshold. But if they were to perhaps dedicate 20% of the development, so 20 units, as affordable, they could perhaps be granted that 10% density bonus and get the 100 units. And in exchange, the county would get an additional 20 units of affordable housing. So again, those incentives could look at density bonuses, reduced parking, reduced setback requirements, impact fee waivers, et cetera.
I think our affordable housing ordinance already addresses some of those incentives.
Well, don't they in Palm Coast do that already?
Yeah, Disney
It's
is,
a,
that we
but
have-
it's a requirement for the loan they get to build
Oh.
that certain percentage of the apartments be set aside as affordable.
So we have incentives in Chapter 16, our housing chapter of our ordinance, which is the next slide. Those incentives apply for 100% affordable housing developments.
Okay.
Whereas this would be an attempt to incentivize local developers to even utilize a portion of their projects.
But we recognize it in the 100%, so it's
Yeah.
not, okay. And would the example of the ICI development that they just approved in Palm Coast, would that fit kind of in this category? Remember how they came back and they said, can we have 21 more, but we'll make them affordable housing? Well, not workforce housing, sorry, workforce housing.
Somewhat similar. Ideally, though, you wouldn't have just one section of the neighborhood dedicated.
Oh, is that what they did?
I believe
These
so.
would be interspersed.
Well, they haven't built that neighborhood yet, so
Yeah.
they just put in 13 additional housing.
13.
Right,
I don't think it's a
calling for it to be
section. I think
affordable.
it's
Okay.
just,
So then
The
it
whole
would
thing
be
was going to
similar.
be, not just the additional 13.
I think it was just the additional 13 was going to be affordable, right?
Which
I-
project are you
I
talking?
think, I don't know, we weren't there.
okay,
Couple projects.
bad question, sorry. That's how I read it, but I don't know.
So this was just a portion of a neighborhood, whether it be 10%, 20%, or 30%, could be deemed affordable, and then they would get incentives. So my question about the incentives listed here, which you have on number 5 as well, is that going to be a board decision of what type of incentives into that project they will get? Or will that be like, if you give us 20%, you will get reduced setbacks?
If the policy is written and adopted, then it would be, administrative. We could write into the policy, that you qualify for all of the incentives or 3 out of the 6 incentives. Or you can write into the policy that it has to come back for, board approval for those waivers. However, that's kind of, the goal here is to incentivize the affordable housing, and sometimes extra hearings dissuade developers.
I don't know. I don't know, when I look at setbacks and things like that, being an administrative,
Did Palm
worry
Coast
about where
approve
it's
this
at.
one? Did Palm Coast approve this one? Does anybody know? Does Palm Coast approve this one? Deborah, do you
I
know?
don't believe so.
I think part of that's part of the evaluation. Again, this is one of those where we proceed cautiously because there's a lot of questions. This is talking about incentives, which would mean it's voluntary. So, I think you have to be careful of mandating versus incentive-based. And then most of all these are set to promote density in exchange for affordability. And almost every opposition to a development plan is about densities and impacts from increased density. So this one we have to be careful with. I think as a concept, right, it works in areas. We have to look at where this would be appropriate and where it wouldn't be appropriate.
in like a zone for it. I could see this being abused.
That's what I'm,
Yeah,
that's
so it has
exactly what I
to-
was thinking.
It's a,
Determines what,
it could be something tied to mixed use areas as opposed to an infill area where you've already got low density single family. It could be just something in mixed use zones. Or with, the other one is with large scale master planning. So used to be a DRI of 750 units required this type of evaluation of workforce housing, a percentage. That was a mandate. Wasn't incentive based, but it was a mandate. But it had problems. I don't even know of successful. Do we have successful examples of it being? It always would come back and be modified.
Yes, sir.
So that's the other portion you have to be careful of is you approve it, and then there has to be some clear limits on future modifications that those have to be accounted for in advance. So there's a lot of thought process in this
And there's no methodology in this
Correct.
to ensure that the house remains affordable.
That's part of the,
Yeah.
that's, I mean, as a project comes through, more than likely, it's going to be some type of planned unit development, mixed-use planned unit development. Those are written into that PUD agreement. So
Right.
those stipulations would be part of that.
When you require them to stay affordable, it becomes a punishment in neighborhoods like this where only a portion of them are. Because if your neighbor's home is going for much more, but you're not able to sell off and get the equity.
It's a lot.
It's a total nightmare. And totally unfair at the end of the day for the person that started out as affordable. So I'm just not a fan of this one, but I'll be a no on it, but you guys can do whatever you'd like in the recommendation. I just don't see, I see a lot of potential for abuse if we don't get it right.
Well, I don't think it works. I mean, I don't think this type of development works. So I would not vote for, I would not include this either. I don't think we should.
I don't have a problem taking it back to AHAC and trying to do a little more research on this. Some of these recommendations are after going to conferences or hearing about how it's working in other communities that might not fit our community. I don't know. But we can always do some more work on it.
I would say being cautious on this would be appropriate, and especially taking some of those examples from other DRIs in the past, and maybe getting some examples of what had changed over the years, the requests for changing those, because there's not a great track record right now.
Certainly, we can do that. I was
Just
going
have
to
to
say,
say the last three letters, ETC. That's all I have
and
to
others,
say.
sure.
There
Well,
it's
and
not
I was going to touch
significant.
base on the incentives. So we can, pick and choose which of those we
Right,
want
I was going to say, they don't have to get all
use.
those
Well,
incentives.
yeah,
So
but
if
somebody can
setbacks
be
are
very
made-
creative and
you
come
know.
up with something different, and
Right.
then somebody else said, well, I didn't have the opportunity to have that. It can cause mayhem
Absolutely, yeah.
throughout our community.
From my limited knowledge, I think probably one of the more compelling one is the impact and permit fee waivers for a lot of developers. So to me, that one might be one that's less impactful to the surrounding community to a degree. But again, we can go back to the committee and see
Pam,
if there's...
are you a consensus, a yes on this? So there's no consensus on number?
No consensus.
Consensus.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 5, somewhat related.
So yeah, these are the, recommendation 5 is to expand the local incentives to support affordable housing. Here are the incentives that we do already have in Chapter 16 in our housing chapter, in our Code of Ordinances, including mainly all the best practices across the state as incentives. Again, this does apply to projects that would have to be 100% affordable. The section also outlines time constraints. In some instances, it has to be affordable for at least 30 years. I believe there's one instance where it has to be affordable for at least 20 years. There's really not really any more incentives that we can look at to expand this list. However, if it is the board's direction, we can go back to our existing list and see if there's any other way we can modernize it. I think some of the language pertaining to the time constraints may be a little outdated at this point, or a little bit more difficult for interested developers to understand. But other than that, there's not a whole lot else we can add to it.
Are all of these included within our affordable PUD ordinance?
Correct.
All of these are that are listed.
Yeah.
So as an applicant uses that tool, they're already there. So what else did you need from us?
Again, this was just a recommendation from AHAC, and we're providing the information that we kind of
So
already...
is this applied then for straight zoning? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Instead of through the PUD process?
Correct,
So for
yes.
smaller single lots or smaller...
Any applicant.
They can do some of this through planning board, as far as setbacks and other, I guess the list would be what requires planning board review, what would have to come to the commission, those types of things I would look at.
But the incentives in this case would be administrative. So the incentive there being is you're avoiding additional hearings that can be.
Bring back the administrative ones from the PUD and see how they would apply outside of the PUD, would be my guess, my suggestion.
Well, I think we let this one go. It's just, it picks what's already in our plan.
Other than we're moving it from the affordable PUD ordinance to stand alone.
So it's
It
a change
does.
from an individual application building permit to a PUD.
I'd like to get a comment, if anybody over on the table here, you're both looking concerned, so if you have, would you let us know if you have any thoughts?
They always look that way.
They need to be.
That's my
Yeah.
frown face, right, Michael?
That's why I sit close.
No, I know that there are incentives that you can build in, and you can codify them within your land development code. And some of them aren't necessarily specific to affordable housing, but their effect will result in affordable housing. I know that one of the biggest ones is tweaking the language when it comes to accessory dwelling units, because what you then have is the permission to construct what are basically mother-in-law units. Those then become rentable to third parties, and those then, by effect, become affordable housing units. When those can be rented, that would just then be a relaxing of single-family uses, because in essence, you may have, when you're renting a mother-in-law unit to a third party, or to an outside party, you've created a multifamily use within the single-family district. So those are the things you're going to be considering when you do these types of incentives within. That's what other cities have done as ways of creating these incentives. So those are the things you want to look at them, and we can examine them and look at them. But while the effects of them are administrative, I think the incentives are going to have to be codified, so they're going to be incorporated within the land development code. Then you can then effectuate them administratively without it having to come before this board as part of approvals. But if we're going to include these as part of the land development code, they're going to be coming through when we do the full bore amendment to the land development code, and you're going to include these as certain incentives. That's, at least I would recommend that.
Now, with ADUs, do we let the state drive that? I mean, they're in the middle of driving that train right now. Do we
That's our
wait and
next,
see what?
that's our next recommendation,
Pardon me?
is ADUs, is the next recommendation.
Well, it's listed in here too. But I can wait till
Oh.
the next discussion.
Do we have consensus on recommendation 5 for now?
I'm fine.
I'm okay with an analysis of pulling from the PUD and seeing what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm good.
You have 3.
And then we have recommendation 6, which is to develop an accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Again, I think we all know what ADUs are, as our attorney just explained. We have seen these increasingly proposed in state legislature in the past few cycles, making it almost all the way and at the very end falling through. And then we did support this in our new comp plan, although it's yet to be unadopted. We do have a policy supporting ADU. We think it would be in the interest to try to get this through before the state legislature, just because they have certain requirements that may be less than specific than what we would like. Based on HAHAC's recommendations, we could look at things, like prohibiting ADU rentals for less than 1 month. So they're actually being used as housing rather than just as short-term vacation rentals. we could require property owners to reside in the primary dwelling, so you don't have owners renting out both the primary structure and the ADU and having less oversight, which can sometimes be a nuisance for neighbors. Ensuring that properties with ADUs are not denied that homestead exemption, at least for the portion where their primary dwelling is. So we do think it would be in the public interest to get this done essentially as soon as possible. If you are to recommend us continue with that, that would probably be our first priority, just so we have it established.
Any questions?
I guess that's the right, even if we proceed with some guidelines, if state statute overrides, it'll come back. We would have to adhere to state guidelines. We're not sure when they're going to address it. Like you said, it keeps coming forward but hasn't reached the finish line yet.
Correct. Or it may be in a situation where the state statute exempts local governments that already have an ordinance. We don't know what exactly it could look like. For example, like there's our short-term vacation rental statutes, they kind of preempted most local governments, but because we had already had one, we were grandfathered in. So if it's a situation like that, it would be better if we already had the ordinance established.
Do we get many calls for ADUs
Every single
We
day.
built one over in the hammock.
every single day? Yeah.
Yeah, we built one over in the hammock already.
I think it would be beneficial to have them because I have so many people with RVs out in the Mondex and the areas like that that have asked about ADUs before. I'm hoping it would.
That was an RV.
kind of- Well, they
ADU.
have that in lieu of because we don't allow for the ADU.
Oh,
But see, that's a
Oh,
whole
but if
issue
they had
with
a ADU,
not being
all
hooked
right.
up to septic and has its own issues.
Palm Coast is
Getting
struggling.
Bulow vibes again all
Palm Coast
over.
is going to struggle with this. Palm
yeah,
Coast is going
somebody
to
who
struggle with
believes
this
in-
big
in-
time. They're not going to allow them.
Their
They're going to
lots
wait for
aren't
the state,
ideal
I
for
think.
Find it as a comfortable situation, in my opinion.
We have allowed them.
We have.
There's one in my
Outside.
district, there's one
Yeah,
that was built. So.
yeah.
We do allow currently what we would consider mother-in-law suites or guest cottages, where essentially it could be a separate structure, it could be a walled-off portion of the home, essentially acting as an ADU, but without the range or the stove. That's what we consider it to be a second dwelling unit. So it works out in situations for if it's an elderly parent or a family member, but it's not exactly feasible or conducive to full-on housing for somebody who needs
And they
it.
can't do that with mobile homes.
No, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
A lot of people are using their sheds right now
She should.
as
All right, Adam?
rental units.
It's gonna give
So
you
where do we
heartburn,
go
Adam?
with that?
No, especially if, the legislature's talked about this for a long time, and I think if it's done the right way, my concern for us is unincorporated county septic requirements. There's going to be, several things that we'll have to work with others to come up with. City of Palm Coast providing water service, then you'll probably have some kind of multiplier that'll be needed for that increased usage on the water. So, we'll have to figure out each situation as it comes up.
So one
potentially.
extra bathroom. An ADU would not
Potentially.
need multiple bathrooms.
Shouldn't.
It would have a small kitchen and a bathroom.
You'd expect that.
Washroom.
And I'm familiar, we've had language in other zoning codes that I've worked with that have said clearly subordinate and incidental. So from your primary principal use, so that you have some question of scale. What I've seen coming from the legislature so far, if I'm remembering correctly, doesn't have that in it. But that's something that, that we may want to come up with as we talk more about this.
But it would be a detached unit on that, or attached.
It can look a bunch of different ways. We could have both or only one
We
option.
restrict it to those type of things?
If our policy was written that way, yeah.
Okay.
The good news on this one is that, in theory, the primary residence would be homesteaded, so at least they would be overseeing their accessory dwelling, so you're not worried so much about,
Well, we do have people that want to downsize, and they and the family wants to take care of them. I mean, it's not uncommon. I've got a friend in Massachusetts right now building one because they don't need the big house anymore, but, you know, they want to stay with the kids. Multi-generational living it should be positive in the community, not negative.
Not the negativity of it. It's most people that had moved into multi-age family units usually build on to the back of their home. That's what it's always been in my entire career.
Well, we can keep it that way. It's going to
And
be the
that's not
policy
end
that's
of the
brought
world,
before us.
Because then you're just changing the floor plan of the actual
Right.
property on the lot. We're not talking about having to redo separate septic systems, or sewer
Right.
systems, water, it's all there. If
Well, not
that's all we're
necessarily.
doing.
They're designed for what's there now, not for expansion.
Of course, but there is a way to add on to it, I'm assuming. I am not a builder, so I won't count that for
Well,
me.
correct me if I'm not wrong, this is already in the comp plan, right? This whole ability to do accessory dwelling units is in the
Yeah.
new comp plan.
And the new one, but that's not been adopted yet.
I know, it's
But
in there.
It's in there, yes.
It's in there.
Yes.
Knowing that the state was going to do something, I
we're
think
still
we
waiting
trying
on
to
that.
preempt that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
what,
I think out of all of these, this is the one that will probably have the biggest impact and be utilized. So definitely requires a thoughtful process, but should probably be one of the ones up on the top of the list.
yeah, this would be our first priority.
Yeah.
And again, what the ADUs actually look like can also be constrained by dimensional requirements. So we would have to figure out and establish the setbacks. You know, are we going to make them have the same setbacks as the primary structure, or will they have a little bit of flexibility on the sides or the rear? If it's a smaller lot, a quarter-acre lot, most likely it'll have to be attached to the existing dwelling in order to meet those setbacks. If it's larger in a more rural area, if it's on
Yeah, I was gonna say, we might have,
R1 or ag, they may have plenty of room to do a separate structure.
between Barrier Island and out west,
Yeah.
we may have two different.
Right.
It may end up looking
And they
different,
have
yeah.
several different.
Again, all those specific dimensional details would be outlined in the policy itself.
Right,
We have
consensus for
consensus.
6?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
All right, you have
Okay.
3.
Right, thank you. The last one is regarding establishing a local affordable housing trust fund. And a trust fund is a dedicated, segregated account established by the board, an ordinance or resolution specifically for affordable housing. Can be established without seed money or dollars to begin with. And then future funding policies and sources of funding can be applied. On the left, we have several potential revenue sources as options and ideas. Includes utility reimbursements, sale of surplus county-owned land, dedicating a percentage of proceeds from sales of land, short-term rental registration, negotiated contributions to rezonings or PUDs, developer in lieu fees, et cetera, et cetera. And on the right are potential uses. So again, the Housing Trust Fund is a pool of money that can support development of affordable housing, whether that's temporary relocation or housing folks in substandard housing while their home is remediated, accessibility modifications, low-cost repair loans, bridge loans for nonprofits, disaster housing assistance, and other types of needs. So really, there isn't any, the potential sky's the limit almost in terms of the uses there and what we could potentially use the trust fund for. Would probably be good to narrow that down to a few and really set certain targets for that. But ultimately, I think this could be of benefit to us to support housing developments. As you know, and is before you this evening, the only way the county's been able to support rental development is through our SHIP funding, and that amount fluctuates year to year and that sort of thing. So this could create a set aside or a dedicated pool of funding for affordable housing outside of the SHIP fund that can be for projects in the county. So again, fairly conceptual, like the Community Land Trust. There's a lot of different ways this can go and look. But again, the recommendation from the committee was to pursue establishing a trust and coming up with a few sources of revenue so that we can build that pot of money to support projects with local match dollars.
How would you, when I read this, all I could think of was SHIP. And this is, SHIP does all this, right? So what would determine if somebody applied, whether it was SHIP funding or this funding?
Well, I think we would use this funding for everything that SHIP doesn't do, right? And so maybe one big piece of that could be the rental development projects, like the Phoenix Crossing. Those take a big chunk of money, a few $100,000. So we could use that, and that frees up more of the SHIP funding for, individual family projects and smaller one-on-one projects. Again, there's a lot of different ways we could slice and dice this, but the thought is either in supplement to or filling in gaps that SHIP doesn't cover or provide. And also it could leverage, along with SHIP, right? Say maybe we could put in $100,000 from SHIP, and then another $200,000 from the Housing Trust Fund. That creates a housing or a local match. And certain, so if you're chasing federal tax credits in an application to fund housing, you have to have a certain amount of local match. So typically that'll be about $300,000 or $400,000 for us. We could piece together those funds that way.
Question for Adam. If we had this in place with some funds, could this have been utilized by our Bureau folks in bringing code compliance up?
It could have, and I'll put a caveat on that, provided that would have provided permanent housing that would have met building code requirements. So that I'm hesitant to say that conversion of an RV would work, but a park model, maybe building a permanent structure there would have been something to provide for them through this.
Right. Unfortunately, none of those were intended in that route.
Yeah, it may be better in this instance to
probably wouldn't have
relocation.
qualified if we had some strict guardrails on it.
Right. Yes, sir.
And potential other future sources.
My question is, this is a fund that the county has. Legal okay with that? Finance okay with that? Do we have other trust funds? I'm sure we do. Yes? Okay. Thank you.
I think the rules, pardon me, I didn't mean to just, it's in how it's structured and the transparency of it and the accountability of it to where it single line item fund.
Great. We have a recommendation, a consensus on item number 7.
Additional review, examples, other uses where we can learn from.
Well,
I think this is a good idea. Would we manage the trust fund? We, the Board of County Commissioners?
You would have oversight of it. That would be how I'd suggest structuring it. I mean, we would probably be staff administering and day-to-day. And that's
Finance.
Finance and staff.
Right.
Issuing RFPs to award funding and those kinds of things out of the trust
Right,
fund.
because we don't bother you on SHIP funding. We don't vote on that.
No.
But on this trust fund, I think maybe we should.
Yes, yeah, no, absolutely. I think there would be direction from the board on priorities of use and sources and those kinds of things, absolutely, yeah.
so in the actual report, under number 7, it gives you 4 counties,
Yes.
2 counties and 2 cities that already have such a fund. So again, this is something that I know since I've been on the board or on the AHAC, it's come up several times. It would have a purpose. Maybe we need more information about our purpose, but it definitely has a purpose in the affordable housing arena throughout the state.
Well, absolutely, I'd agree. I think if there's any feedback on any of the sources of revenue that might help us kind of narrow our search and efforts, or the use, I think there's kind of a broad menu there for both of those. So either now or in time, we can narrow that down and make it custom to what we want here, for sure.
I see this one taking a while to put together anyway. I'd hate to see you stop working on it. I don't know if it'll get done this year and not maybe carry over to next year, but I'd hate to stop working on it.
Okay. We can come back with some examples.
We'll take
and models.
7
Okay.
for now.
Thank you.
All right, well, that is it. That is all of our recommendations.
Have a good day.
Anything else from the
Thank you.
board?
Thanks.
Do you have a
Thank you.
Good job.
prioritization?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a prioritization? Simone, you comfortable with?
I think we do, yeah. Simone?
I think we're going to start with our ADU ordinance and our housing impact statement and keep working from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, we're moving on now to item number 5, the interlocal agreement to protect the old brick road. Mr. Moylan.
Oh, sure.
Good
Good
afternoon, sir.
afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. We'll jump right in. Back in 2004, the County Commission adopted a management plan for the Old Brick Road, and the long-term vision was that this would be almost like a linear park. They even contemplated having a pedestrian and bike path parallel to it, kiosks with historical information, areas to rest. The number one recommendation of that management plan was to get the logging trucks off the road, and we have not so far been able to do that because there are no alternative routes to access this large part of the county. So what we've been doing is we've been burying the bricks in sand and topsoil to help protect them as sort of a placeholder, and that's been going on for several decades now. And because it is so far out there, it's so rural, there is an issue with theft. So people have stolen many of the bricks, and there are people who go out there and dump their trash as well. And now things are coming more to a head because we have development pressure. And I did put the Manifest Destiny there as sort of a nod to the historical constituency. The idea being like there's this inevitability that development is coming at some point. The County Commission actually approved the Old Brick Township DRI in around 2007, I believe. But the area has now annexed into Palm Coast. They are currently going through a rezoning for a master plan development. And I am told that the area you see there in the middle of the map that is not colored, that will also be annexed into the city. That is where many of their wells are located. And to try to just orient you, the artery there going north and south, that's the railroad. Down at the bottom of the blue, you can see where Espanola is, and the Old Brick Road is going diagonally to the left out of Espanola and northward up to the county line. So we have development pressure, which makes the management plan now more imperative. And hopefully it presents an opportunity here to work together with Radiant and the city of Palm Coast. Right now, the only thing that you commissioners have control over is that 50-foot right-of-way. Everything outside of that belongs to the private property owner and is within the jurisdiction of Palm Coast in terms of land use. I'll zoom in, but this is the conceptual plan for what will be developed out there. It's essentially the same area of the county that I just displayed. At the bottom, you can see where the small town of Espanola is, and the Old Brick Road emanating northward from there all the way up to the county line. Again, the right side, the border there of where the colored land ends, that is the railroad. And I will zoom in a bit here. When we were discussing this with Radiance Engineer, the first image I saw, it looked as if the new, I believe it's labeled as a county road, but it's going to be a state road, 2209, a highway. It looked like it was right on top of Old Brick Road, and I said, no. And they said, no, it's just the scale of the drawing. It's going to be parallel to the road. But as you can see in this drawing, it is actually contiguous to the road, and that is not what we had hoped for. We were hoping to have a buffer between the Old Brick Road and whatever development comes in there, whether it be homes or a highway, so that the Old Brick Road retains that rural feel to it when you're on it, that it kind of harkens back to the days of when the original tourists were coming down to Florida 100 years ago. So right now the plan is not so much to have a buffer, but that road would be immediately contiguous to the Old Brick Road. When the County Commission approved the Old Brick Township, there was a preservation tract in the map. So there was a natural area that would buffer the Old Brick Road from the development. That is now gone. And here we're getting a little further south in the development, and they are showing two crossings of the Old Brick Road, one being that new State Road 2209, and then another connector south. So there's two crossings already in the works. Those would be, as far as we know, at grade. So what we did last October, if you recall, we filed a map. There was no question that the county government owns the Old Brick Road. However, there was nothing in the record title to reflect that. Even the very first meeting of the county commission 107 some odd years ago, one of the first actions they took was to pay off the bonds to finish the road, which were originally issued by St. Johns County. This area was carved out of St. Johns County. And when this Flagler County Commission took ownership of the road, they had to pay down the debt, and they hired convicts to complete, I say hire, they employed convicts to complete some of the more difficult portions of the road. All of that to say, there was no question as to ownership, but there was nothing in the title that said we own it. Now there is, and this is according to Florida statute. So we got that squared away. And now we're moving on to the interlocal. I'm going to go through sort of bullet points of the main deal points. If anything here gives you heartburn, please let us know as staff so that we can go back to the drawing board. Unlike most land use things that you, yes, sir.
Sean, you don't show where the First Coast Expressway is going to impact this. The map I saw, it's going to cut right across Flagler County.
The First Coast Expressway, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah,
Is that different than the 2209 that I was mentioning? Okay. That I'm not even familiar with.
Okay. I'll show you the stuff, but I've got a map. It looks like it's coming right across us to get to 95.
Okay. What I was beginning to say is, most of the time when you deal with land use, oftentimes you're dealing in a quasi-judicial capacity where you have to base your decision on the evidence presented in the hearing and not popular opinion. But this is different. This is policy making, and you are encouraged to listen to your constituents and as their representatives to decide what you think is best. This is policy making. Okay, so as I mentioned, the developer was very much in agreement that this is a resource that should be preserved and that would be an amenity to the people who end up living out there, as well as an attraction for our current residents and future visitors to the county. So everyone's in agreement, generally speaking, as to that long-term goal. There are presently 21 existing connections to the road for logging trucks, and under the proposed interlocal, those would remain in place until alternatives become available for those logging trucks to take something else that's viable. Right now, they simply don't have another access, and they've come to rely on the Old Brick Road. Under the proposed interlocal, it says that there would be no more than 4 at-grade crossings, and each of them have to be at least a mile apart, without separate approval from the county commission. There would be no limit to above-grade crossings, flyovers. They could have as many as they want. I think the market would limit how many there would be because of the cost. This was something we went back and forth a bit on. We started off saying, okay, the road is approximately 8 miles long. What if there were 8 crossings at grade? And then we said, well, this is a historical gem. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. It's part of the Florida Crossroads. What if there were 0 at-grade crossings? And where we finally ended up was proposing to the elected officials 4, that being sort of the midway point. Any future connections to the road would have to go through our right-of-way utilization process, and that retains some aspect of control over what is done from an engineering perspective. Also, the interlocal says that we would, if there's an at-grade crossing, we would preserve the bricks that are disturbed, we would remove them and use them to repair other places on the road that have been damaged or where there has been theft. Utilities would be able to use this. It is a right-of-way after all, but they would have to bore under the bricks. Oh, and this shall not be an access for the development. This will not be a neighborhood road for the development. They're going to be building their own access roads. And whenever there is development proposed, the city will give us notice. They're going to involve us. And in fact, right now, we have pending comments with the city staff based on Radiant's proposed development. One of those comments, I said, can we please have a buffer along the Old Brick Road? The only thing that the city staff was willing to commit to, because the development plans are so conceptual at this point, they only committed to considering buffers, but they didn't want to guarantee that there would be enhanced buffers through the interlocal.
It's the best time to promote changes to that because it's conceptual.
Right? Right. And this is where the city would have the leverage to set the ground rules for future development. Once that zoning's in place, your control over that is now gone. So those are the bullet points of the interlocal. You probably should hear from public comment, but if any of that it doesn't sit right with you, please let us know now. This interlocal is slated for the city's agenda on May 5th, and we also have it coming forward in the near future. And just to wrap up, I will kind of give you back to the big picture. We had the original management plan from '04. We filed the map last October. We're now working on this interlocal with the city. I am thinking that once we have an interlocal in place, that we would also want to codify whatever restrictions and procedures we want to have in place relative to the road. And then, of course, we have to implement it. We have to make it happen. Just one last point I forgot to mention. The interlocal also mentions that we anticipate in the future that there would be amendments to it. This development is going to take a generation to actually build it out. And this is just the first step. Things are very conceptual. So we realize that as the plans crystallize, there could be more specific type of parameters we want to put in place. So that interlocal in the future could very well be amended. That was all I had by way of presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Don't go anywhere yet.
Okay, I won't.
Now, officially, Old Brick Township hasn't been officially dissolved yet, right? That's still an
I think that's
issue.
happening now. Adam, do you know better than me? Maybe
It's
on that?
part of the MPD. So once the MPD is approved, the other one goes away.
Right,
So there's,
right.
And what did you glean out of the Old Brick Township plan that as part of the, you've referenced preservation as part of Old Brick Township?
Yes, I saw a conceptual drawing for the Old Brick Township that had a preservation tract a long, narrow tract of land immediately contiguous to the Old Brick Road, and it was clearly there as a protective buffer. They also, I was reading their DRI application to the state, and they were talking about having a development that was shaped by the existing landscape rather than imposing their view on the landscape. And I think the Old Brick Road was very much part of that.
So there's, as I see it anyway, there's positives. As we've been moving forward, there's been progress on preserving and prioritizing the preservation of Old Brick Road. And, right, we still have a ways to go to get trucks off of it.
Yes.
Now, in working with the developer, is there language with, as they move forward, is there any language on moving that forward more quickly? Is there a way to get trucks off of the Old Brick Road as they do start developing?
Based on my conversation, and it was a pleasure, by the way, working with Mr. Campbell and Radiant's team, my understanding, what they said was it's going to happen in phases, so it wouldn't be the whole 8 miles at once, but as a neighborhood is developed, if now there is a way they can get their logs out of there to the market without using the Old Brick Road, they are very much willing to do that. It's going to take those neighborhood roads being built first.
I'm just thinking as, can we tie something to the completion of the loop road, right? They don't have an easy access eastward. The loop road provides a path over the railroad
And
tracks.
go back to the,
So if the railroad tracks were if they didn't want to bring the logging trucks over the railroad tracks, the overpass will help that. There'll be an eastward path now.
certainly.
Just thinking if there's ways to timeline the removal of the logging trucks.
It's hard to be very specific at this point, but the language in the interlocal just says that they have to do it when those alternative routes become viable. Viable being a little bit in the eye of the beholder. But in this picture, for example, once that is built, well, clearly they have access to the loop road
I
on
was going to
this.
say, everything east of the wetland strand can go to the loop road. It's worth, I'd like to sit down and see in my mind how that might be able to be done. But again, just thinking out loud as a way to get the logging trucks off of the road. I mean, I'm sure we'll hear some discussion about that too from our experts about what they're doing to the road. But let's see. And the only other thing I've got, I will love to hear from the other commission members about the crossings. Obviously, that'll be a point of contention. They show two. I think their master plan probably has efficiently been worked to avoid crossing, knowing how critical and sensitive that is. I mean, I'd like to limit it to what the plan says and allow future connections to come back to us. And I actually have more heartburn with the buffer because I think as the details that we see show another potential adjacent road, and I just think users will lose the character, not just the bricks and the road itself, but the setting.
Yes.
I mean, if you're clear cutting right up to the edge of Old Brick Road, I think it would be much more fitting in a setting with some natural wider buffers on each side. And I would push hard against whatever the most incompatible buffer that the city offers. I don't know what that looks like, if it's 60, 100 feet. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head.
The problem with that is the 2209 that they're showing there, that land was already given, I think, to the state, from my conversation with Radiant, was already given for that road. And they're saying that road is an emergency, like an emergency roadway, so therefore they can go wherever they'd like to go with it. It seemed like that was the part of the
I don't-
discussion. Because
know if
it
there's
does show, it is right up against the brick road, and it can be 4 lanes.
Right. So it would really lose the feel if you're standing on the old brick road, you're just
Right.
looking at a busy 4-lane highway going by. I don't know what contract they may have in place with the state, but there's no deed recorded giving that land to the state for the road right now. And I think this is our opportunity to try to urge them to put some sort of buffer, whatever the number is, and perhaps a letter from the chair with a consensus of the board to the city would have more oomph than a comment from staff to their staff. Just saying, hey, can we please have a buffer between the old brick road and whatever development occurs, including 2209?
Yeah.
And last comment, and I'll let everybody else talk, sorry. There's a public meeting for the town, for that master plan development at 6 PM on Wednesday. I believe it's at City Hall. Or is it the community center? Thank you. So, but there is one Wednesday, so some additional comments can be carried there as well.
Can I just say something before I forget it?
Thank you, I'm done.
They're trying to modernize a community in a historic area. So it's really, I guess the word is dichotomy, or there's a special word for that. Having the natural beauty of where it's at, for them to dismiss it causes heartburn for me, because part of Flagler is the Tree City USA, is Palm Coast, and the beauty of where we live, and the variety is there. But to actually just turn a whole a century of remnants away, to belittle it to next to nothing, is really not in favor of any kind to do that anywhere. Princess Place is historic. Do we have a highway coming through it or around it? No. And I understand that they have the land, I get it, but there has to be a way that we can maybe have some kind of pathways on either side of it. I mean, it's just not conducive to our community in that sense. I can't talk about the project. I don't know anything about it. I don't know about all these roads. But when you're talking about a 4-way highway, that's disturbing to me on something so precious.
There is a bit of an irony that we're dealing with history and new development, but I'm hoping this is an opportunity to get closer to the vision in our management plan that we haven't been able to make happen. So the irony that, yeah, it's going to get developed, but that's what's going to get the logging trucks off of the old brick road. And so I feel like they have so many acres, there's got to be a way to have a buffer there. There's so much acreage and land.
It doesn't cost to build another entrance when you have it there. So I just don't find it as comfortable as I'd like it to be, put it that way.
So Sean, this view, is this 1 mile? The two points that they're talking about right now? Is that a mile?
I have not measured that out. I believe it's more than a mile.
Okay, good. So it meets that's probably where the mile came in, right?
They must have had that in mind.
In your mind, or to your understanding, is this development agreement, is there a time crunch here? I mean, this thing's been going on for like 50,000 years, right? So why now? Why right this moment?
They asked that we get comments to them as of 2 days ago, and we did give them comments, but we said, by the way, we're having a workshop on this on the 20th, so we may have further comments. And so, yes, it is moving through the city's approval process.
With ease or without ease?
Without
Is
ease.
there, huh?
Oh, with ease right now, it looks like. The original development plan out there called for them to provide things like the sports complex. And the new one does not require them to, so there
I
has
don't
been
think
some-
it's as
But-
clear cut as,
We're trying to limit the impact of the brick road right now and get ahead of
Sure.
it with this board. So what do we?
I just don't want to be making premature
I agree.
decisions about something that's a generation away. I mean, I don't mind one or two or whatever our community wants, but I have a real hard time with going past two. So I don't, if they can come back and there's a different board or there's a different plan, and there would be no way we couldn't look at a buffer on this. There's just no way. This makes me think of when I went to Greece to see the footprints of Jesus walking from Corinth to, and you look down and there's an actual road there. It was actually a brick road. But we got to protect this to the highest level that we possibly can. It's my opinion.
What is the width of the 4 at-grade crossings? Do we have an estimated width of how much of the 8 miles it would remove?
The width of those two crossings?
If we put in
It's in,
4 at-grade, what do we think that would do to the brick road
it's in the interlocal. I think they said 64 feet? 64 feet
per
wide
crossing?
per crossing.
That's even with the expressway? That seems like that doesn't fit. And I guess the other comment would be, since you're on that discussion, is why isn't the expressway on the other side of the old brick road? So that we don't have, because a 4-lane road is, I can see a 2-lane road. There's ways of actually being site sensitive with that kind of design. I've been on plenty of trails that have had 2-lane crossings that that don't seem intrusive at all. They've been designed properly. They've been very sensitive. But the 4-lane one is almost seems to me like it deems it be a necessary overpass.
It may be. When I asked the city staff, how wide of a crossing do you need? That was the number they gave me.
Right.
So I don't know if 2209 is intended to be a
So our-
flyover or if it's actually
I
64.
think that's the question then. So 2-lane crossings, right? Two 2-lane crossings, but a 4-lane high speed. Again, I don't know the design of the road, but seems like that would be more in tune with an overpass, and if they had it on the other side of the road, it doesn't even need to cross Old Brick Road.
Madam Chair, if I could add, and I don't know if it's good timing or bad, but I think the one caveat that's here with this is the scale of the map, and the other side is that at least now it's a preliminary layout, and so I think that there are decisions yet to make. I think again, not advocating for the developer here, but I think there's some interest on the part of Rayonier to have the alignment, the full alignment of 2209, whatever it's going to be designated as, east of Old Brick Road, because that'll give them the opportunity for connections to that road. And so, certainly there's crossings that will be needed if it has those kind of meandering over, the Old Brick Road. It may be flyover, could be part of your review, part of your recommendation. But certainly I think it's in their best interest to have it on the east side so that they're able to have some development that may have access to that, even if it's albeit limited access. But I think safe to say plans further to the west are going to be even more limited due to wetlands and other considerations when we get beyond Old Brick Road. I know our folks from Rayonier Radiant can talk with greater detail about this. But.
So I think since there's not a whole lot known, I'm wondering if we could convince the Palm Coast Board to limit the at-grade crossings at this time to maybe 1 or 2. I'd like to do none, but I know I can understand a crossing. But since there's no plans, and they're unlimited on how many flyovers they can do, I'd prefer to limit the impact to the brick road. And it can come back, obviously, with the ordinance in front of a future board as they build out plans. 8 miles.
Approximately, yes.
I think two's in the, as we put this ILA forward, I think two crossings is plenty.
Understood, yes. That's 4 of you that have suggested 2, so.
Up to 2.
2. I don't know.
I don't know if my, is this, yeah. Going down Belterre, I think our crossings are 5 miles, close to 5 miles before you can go all the way across to US 1 or Palm Coast Parkway to get back to US 1. So it's actually shorter than what we have in our current city of Palm Coast.
Right. Well, if you live in the L section, Leanne, how do you get to the beach?
Yeah, I go down
You don't go over the toll bridge,
Palm
do you?
Harbor. I do.
Yeah. You do? Oh, well. I'd
But
avoid
there's no
that.
access.
I'd avoid that like the
I'm
plague,
bougie
but
like
I understand, yeah.
You don't go.
But you don't, it's not easy to get from up there down
It's
to
very,
US
very
1 or Palm
convoluted.
Coast Parkway.
It's convoluted.
There's examples of that all throughout the city.
Yep.
Where you can't get there from here.
One more thing. It's a public road. It's in our jurisdiction. It's our road. Why do we have to give them any crossings?
We don't have to. You are in control of that 50-foot wide right-of-way. Nothing beyond it. So it's a matter of trying to balance the interests of the private owner of the land along with the interests of preserving the road. We're doing a balancing act here and making policy. And so if your view is to limit it to 2 or to 0, whatever it is, we'll take your direction and go.
So did you have a good substantiated presentation on why 4 or 8? I mean, like,
It was
what
not exactly.
was the reasoning?
It was
Is-
not exactly scientific. The 8 came as Mr. Mengel and I were just looking at it going, well, we know they're going to want to cross the road. It's 8 miles long. What if there was 1 per mile?
okay.
That's 8.
All right.
But then we said, well, what if there was 0 because this is a historic treasure?
Right.
Right.
And then one of the city planners, I think it may have been Fong, said, well, how about 4? That's right in the middle. So it wasn't a
No
science.
science, there's no science
No
here.
science. It's not.
It's
and there's
all
no
our gut, it's all their gut.
And there's
It's-
no
The
crystallized
developer's not come
plans.
here and begging and pleading for any of this. It's just,
The developer was in the conversation, and they thought 4 was reasonable.
but again, no reason for 4. Just
No engineered plans, nothing that specific,
not
just
doing
this
that.
conceptual drawing.
Okay.
So I think we have a lot to talk about in terms of the buffer still to work out.
Yeah.
I would like to keep it at 0 at this time till we work out the buffers and see more of a plan. It has an ordinance, obviously, that could come back to future boards as they develop this area to work through it. But I don't see, I mean, we've given up so much of this community and not preserved a lick of history along the way.
Yep.
I don't know why we have to, continue down that path. It's the one thing in your control. And I understand it, but they have a way to cross over, and it's called a flyover, so they can just
Yep. Build
do
their own
that.
flyover.
They've said they intend to make this a linear park. They would like to see this made into a linear park where they could ride
Yes,
bicycles.
an
down it.
amenity, yes.
So they have not really said that they cared too much. Obviously, you had a good discussion that they were okay with 4, but they have not said to me, their intention was to make it a linear park. I mean, my God, a highway is going to go next to it. I mean,
Makes sense.
anyways, I think, I would prefer 0. So that's where I'm at. But it does have a way to remediate that going forward with the ordinance. So, but the buffer is important.
Yeah, I think
But we don't know if the city of Palm Coast Board would sign off on 0, but
We don't know. We haven't
Don't
heard
know.
from them,
Well-
only their staff. I guess right now what we can do is hold on the interlocal and push for the buffers.
Yep.
because it's going through that development approval process presently.
Yeah, I'm big on the buffers. I think if it's a 4-lane road, it needs to be a flyover. I think 2-lane roads, the minimum 2 lanes can be effectively mitigated with design and speed and can still be an asset. And there's plans to rehab other sections. And this is a give and take. I mean, right, it's a negotiation. If we stick to no, right, the downside is sticking to 0 and holding firm on 100%. Can we get, what's the other priorities? So anxious to hear from our public to see, where they stand on compromise to some degree. I'm just kind of disheartened on the adjacency of the other roadway.
You seen the rest of it?
So it's so if you're looking for some consensus direction to submit comments back.
I've got some idea. Maybe we should hear from the public and then
I agree.
come back to the board after that.
Yes.
Thank you, Sean.
I'm going to open up this portion to public comment regarding the Old Brick Road. Those who'd like to speak, approach, state your name. You have 3 minutes. You can direct your comments to me. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Sharkovich, president of the Flagler County Historical Society, and I applaud the direction that you're heading in to preserve this roadway. Originally Dixie Highway, built around 1915, stretched from up north near Chicago all the way down to Miami. Flagler County currently has the longest existing stretch of Dixie Highway, uninterrupted, 8 miles approximately, in the country. Out of all that length, we have the longest uninterrupted stretch. I can tell you from being involved with the Historical Society for the last 7 years that we have many people that come to this community as history tourists coming to Flagler County specifically to drive down that uninterrupted stretch of Dixie Highway. Over the years, it's been damaged by the logging trucks, by vandalism and theft, but it's still there. Taking a look at past precedents that have been established by leadership in the community, there have been decisions that have totally compromised the tangible history that's existed here since Pedro Menendez de Aviles marched down from St. Augustine looking for shipwrecked French sailors September 9th, 1565. We've had things that have stood above the ground, but now are buried beneath parking lots, liquor stores, public shopping centers. They no longer exist. Had forethought been put into that from the beginning, we would have a whole lot more features for people to come visit and see what our history is. So I encourage each of you to continue on this direction and this path that you're taking to preserve the entirety, either by circumnavigating our stretch of Dixie Highway with flyovers so that people can continue to see this national treasure that we actually have here. I can tell you that there's a speaker coming after me that will talk a little bit about the 1,303 people that are for this that were not able to make it here today. So I thank you for your time, for the work that you do, for preserving Flagler County history. The Historical Society is always grateful for the Board of County Commissioners, the Tourism Office, and local government does with supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sierra Shatner, and I'm a resident of Flagler County, and I'm also one of the recipients for the scholarship from the Flagler County Historical Society this year. I'm currently pursuing an education in public history with an emphasis in archives management, and so my perspective today comes from both my personal investment in this community and professional training in preservation. I'm also a mom, so I want to be honest that this perspective sits with me in conversations like this. It shapes how I think about time, how I think about things like legacy, and the kind of decisions that we make that outlast us. So in my field, we're taught something very simple but very important. So once historical integrity is compromised, it cannot be authentically restored. We can document what was lost, we can preserve records and photographs, we can provide narratives, but we can't recreate the original experience or the original place once it's been altered beyond recognition. So that's really why I'm here today. I'm not here to dismiss growth or to deny that infrastructure and development can be necessary. I understand those needs and I understand that communities do change, but preservation work teaches you that not all change is neutral and not all progress is additive. So there are moments where decisions either protect something fully or they slowly erode it under the language of compromise. And when we start introducing multiple roadway intersections into a historic corridor, like the Old Brick Road, we aren't just improving access or connectivity, we're fundamentally changing the integrity of a resource that is already very rare, already quite fragile, and already irreplaceable in its original form. So what concerns me the most is that these kinds of changes often don't feel dramatic at the moment. They happen piece by piece, project by project, until what we're left with no longer resembles what we set out to preserve in the first place, such as the example of the liquor store on top of something that could have been preserved for this area. As a mom, I also can't separate this from the long view, so I think about my children growing up here. I think about what will still be intact for them to walk on, to learn from, and to understand about the place that they come from, not just through stories or plaques, but through something physical and real that has been carried forward intentionally. From a preservation standpoint, integrity matters, continuity matters, context matters, and once those are disrupted, even well-intentioned development changes the meaning of what remains here. So my ask today is simple, but I believe it carries weight, that any decisions made moving forward reflect a commitment to full preservation, because ultimately we're not only making transportation decisions, we are deciding what parts of our shared history we are willing to keep intact for the next generation. And once that is gone, it cannot be rebuilt. So thank you for your time and for considering my perspective.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katina Rikas, and I'm here first and foremost as a concerned citizen. I'm also with the Flagler County Historical Society. For the last 48 years, I've lived in Florida, all different parts, and I've explored all the history and nature that just comprises our state and makes it so beautiful. My concern for the Old Brick Road is I've heard about it when I was a child in Ohio. It ran next to my grandfather's ice cream company in Hamilton, Ohio. So I've known about it for, 67 years. My concern about down here is, just as Ed had mentioned, is this is what we got. This is the most continuous piece of it. Why not preserve it for future generations? As soon as I moved here, I was researching history, because I already had, researched St. Augustine, been to St. Augustine multiple times. But I didn't know a lot about Flagler County, which I have been learning and educating myself on the last 8 years. So I saw Brick Road. Sure enough, took my Jeep out there, and then later on my Subaru, and I took the whole Brick Road. So if no one's been out there, which I'm sure many of you have, it's the most beautiful, pristine area to visit. We're going to get noise, traffic, pollution. The wildlife is already being so affected by all the overdevelopment, in my opinion, not responsible development. And I live in a neighborhood where I still have wildlife, but a lot of that's gone. Why can't we preserve certain areas of this county, like along the Old Brick Road, for future generations, as Sarah just said? My question, and I think, Mr. Dance, I think you alluded to it about the loop road or about the trucking of the lumber. Is there a reason that, and this, maybe I'm just ignorant about this, that the timber industry and the owners of the lumber company haven't developed their own road to go up to 13 or wherever it can go? I mean, has that been addressed? Oh, no? So I'm not sure if that could be added as a question as to why an alternative to get those trucks off of that road. At least to start. All these other things, it's going to take time to address. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a public road.
Raymond Royer. I want to speak briefly with the logging. I lived in a POA where we actually had one of our main roads coming through the gate was a logging road in our POA, and that was very expensive to pave later on because they contribute some money, but ended up being $2.5 million to pave 2 main roads in our development. And logging companies not required by law, and businesses, if you see in Florida, come first here in Florida. So they're not required. Also, this is a great potential, as Andy pointed out, talking about another development, but we lost the opportunity of maybe putting affordable housing in. This is a good place to put maybe affordable housing for the future and capture some of this land and also put a park system around it to add the buffer that we need. Because it would be nice to have the community that has affordable housing have a park system around it. So we have an opportunity to possibly, when they do the overpass of this brick road, maybe if it's going to be these 2 roads, or if we do 2 roads overpassing, in between there, that would be the capture land that we capture as the county for affordable housing. And so you have an opportunity to work with the city and try to build up a good buffer and have affordable housing and a park system protecting that with a bike path and everything else. And at least capture some of it. I mean, 8 miles is going to be hard to capture, but at least try to capture 3 to 5 miles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Susie Worley. I live in Benil. My family has been in Flagler County since 1892. I commend you and I beg you to please preserve this part of history. So much of our history has been lost with these new developers. I'm directly impacted by one myself. But there's a lot of interest even in tin can tourists, a lot of different historic events because that was used by the tin can tourists. That was the way they came down for the winters. So there is showings. I'm part of that corporation, and I'm hearing that more and more people are getting involved in it. So please and thank you for doing anything to preserve that piece of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Greg Feldman. I'm a resident of Flagler County. First, I'd like to compliment this whole commission because it sounds as though we're going to do what it takes to preserve Old Brick Road and as much of what we can put on either side of it to keep the character of it. So that's great. I'm not going to regurgitate what everybody else has said. I think everybody here is aware of how important it is to everyone, including the 1,300 or so people who aren't sitting here. Probably, thankfully, it would be a long meeting. I was looking at the map, and I'm looking in particular at the West Village. And we know how Palm Coast is laid out with roads that go every which way, and you got to kind of know the neighborhood. But I was looking at that, and if the extension of Palm Coast Parkway goes across Old Brick, and work with me on this because we don't have the picture up here, but if there's a loop to the north and a loop to the south to bring it back to Palm Coast Parkway, you may be able to eliminate one of those crossings that they've been talking about. And the second thing I just want to say is, I know we don't have too much control over how they build the roads. However, we do have control over our portion of it, which is Old Brick. And I would say that one of the things we should insist upon is every crossing across Old Brick be built in such a way that it's compatible with Old Brick Road, be it pavers or something like that, needs to be compatible with both the right-of-way and Old Brick Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kale Pathway, 5305 Johnson Highway. I think I agree with everyone in the room. I love the public support, and I also got to sing the praises for the commission. I'm grateful to have commissioners who are interested in this and actually kind of reflecting off the ideas and the ideals that we have in Flagler, at least the way we've been approaching history and trying to hopefully manage development as it impacts our areas, and eventually prioritize areas like this that are culturally sensitive. I love the callback to manifest destiny, the idea that this is inevitable, but also we should learn from our mistakes and prevent issues. Because it's true that if this is going to be built, you can't let it just get out of hand, and definitely being proactive and seeing that this is in a generation away, then, that's going to eventually impact my generation, but I think it also can be developed here and understand preparation for it. But obviously, it needs to be not thwarted, but it needs to be controlled. And what we mentioned before, the fact that you guys can have zero crossovers, I think that's massive. I think it should be leveraged to be used. That this is a cultural asset. This is not an amenity. I don't really like that term. I feel like that's the idea that this is some sort of little park that you can play at. No, this is a cultural resource. This is an area that represents Flagler County, represents our history, our heritage. It's not just a little park. It should be a place that be prioritized as something that's very significant, historically, of course, as you see in St. Augustine, which they place a lot of priority towards their historical assets. So that's why I feel like you should view it as that. But of course, yeah, the limiting of the crossovers or the areas it crosses through is critical. And if you can leverage the increase of a buffer to protect the idea and the ideal of the area, that to me is significant. And hopefully that can become part of the conversation, that you guys don't have to let the roads cross through this. And if you guys do, in order to allow the development to progress as it may be, you guys can increase your buffer and hopefully protect more of the resource that's there. But also, just a question also to put it out there to you guys, the road 2209, if I'm sure, is there a reason it has to be on the road or be right on Old Kings, Old Brick Road? Because that doesn't really make much sense. If they pushed it east, wouldn't that still kind of fulfill the same purpose? I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I'm not too sure about the progress in that. And hopefully that can be solved because, even if the 4-lane highway goes over, if it goes right next to it, it kind of still ruins the purpose of this being historical. But anyways, thank you guys for, your commitment to this. And it's really, a pleasure to see this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Your turn? His turn. The historian.
I'm Preston Zepp. I'm with Flagler County Historic Society and the city historian for the city of Palm Coast. What do you want to know about Brick Road? If they put utilities under it, that road's going to collapse. It's literally bricks on dirt. You can't burrow under it. Because we have no preservation ordinances, and it's kind of funny we're talking about this, April is Historic Preservation Month, and we're talking about preserving this road. Because we have no preservation ordinances, if they want to put 4 roads across, which is what I'm hearing from the city, it's your road, but that's what they're going to push for. Another part, we talk about the buffers on either side, and I've dealt with developments and buffers up against Hewitt Sawmill. When things were promised, they fell through. It was supposed to be a wooded buffer. They clear cut all the way up to over the property line that the Ag Museum had. And I had some knockdown dragouts with their planning guy over that. Logging roads, that's simple. It's north-south road. Go off into the middle of their properties on either side and cut logging roads. They used to be called corduroy roads. We've been doing it for thousands of years. The reason they're not is because they can use Brick Road. It's an established road. They can go do whatever they want to do on it. I can tell you after hurricane, whatever the last hurricane we had is, the road washed out and I spent 2 days relaying bricks myself to fix that road. It's not just the bricks. There's concrete curbing on either side that's going to be cut out or just torn up and discarded. Brick Road is only 10 foot wide, straight down the middle of the dirt road. Does that figure into the buffer too? Either side of it, was it 20 foot or whatever? This is a national treasure. If it gets too messed up, it will come off the National Register of Historic Places. I don't know if y'all know that or not. I had a 2-hour conversation with them Friday afternoon. You could lose that designation if it's cut up too much. We're here to help however we can. This is the National Register paperwork for it. If you want to read it, it's here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Yeah, we started a petition 4 days ago, and we're at 1,307 people. The furthest I know is Albany, Georgia, which Brick Road came down. They're like, God, we wish we would have preserved it. Somebody would have done this for us. Down to Miami, and somebody from Alabama. Brick Road came down.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm done.
That's a new noise.
That was my new setup, huh?
If only I had a
Just for you,
defibrillator.
Preston.
Who controls that?
That made my defibrillator go off if I even had one.
Can we get a
My first
consensus
time
to
hearing
change
it,
that
sorry.
noise? Okay.
Yes, let's
We're
change
taking a
that noise.
consensus to put the old noise back.
Really?
A little harsh.
Yeah, that scared me.
I can't breathe.
So, do we have any other public comment? If not, I'll close public comment. Seeing none, I close it. When we started this, almost 4 years ago, the intention was to preserve this road. Now we're talking about boring under it, cutting pieces of it out, all to entertain development. So it wasn't the intention 4 years ago. I don't know how we got here. Now I got a major highway running side by side it. That we can't seem to stop, from what my understanding, because it's an emergency evacuation route. The intention is to take 2209 from 295 to I-4, basically when there's emergencies, to get people out of the middle of the state, because we know that the interstates are congested with the amount of growth coming in. We have nothing official from the state on this road. Only rumors and renderings, so just to let the public know that there's nothing official that we know of regarding it, that I know of, just the rumors and renderings. I think about this, the more I hear, boring, cutting, national, how it's on the history list and everything else, the more I think about it, like, what is the intention here for our board? We own this road, we could preserve this road. They have an opportunity to get over this road by doing flyovers. While it be costly, I don't see where they have quite a lot of development. I think they could afford the cost. I think it'll end up being like the Katy Trail. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they saved that path, and now it's a major tourist destination for walking and biking, and it's kind of like a little jewel in Missouri. So I think we save it as intact as all possible. And I also think I don't know, I'm not crazy about the ordinance either, that somebody could come back and entertain it. I understand the reason for logging, and there is a plan to get them off the roadway at some point, which is the next step of all this. But I don't know that we have to allow them to have crossovers. And I don't think you'll ever get your buffers, because I believe 2209 is going to be land that's donated to the state, and it's already been worked out. But I hope so, but.
Well, here, as I've been thinking and listening, so how about a plan?
Right.
No, and it depends on the rest of your priorities on what you see, but so in a clarification of a couple issues that came up. So it's 50-foot right-of-way, correct?
Yes,
So that's from the center of the road?
yes.
So
On each
that'll
side?
answer Preston's
How wide
question
is the
about,
road?
at least we have 50
50
feet.
total.
So 50 total
And how wide is
from
the road?
so 25 on each side of the center line.
Yes.
But if you want to prioritize buffers,
Plants.
no crossings with no buffers.
Why?
They're not.
So get your buffers and use it as a negotiation.
We own it. If
We don't.
we own it.
We don't own what's on the sides of it.
Correct.
And they have the intention of putting a highway to the one side, and I think now that land's already been earmarked for that highway, I doubt that we'll get the opportunity to negotiate that moving. We could try, but I doubt it. But then they're definitely going to want their crossovers, and I think that's,
And I mean,
you could try.
I just,
Because we always tell people, if you want to control it, you own it. So we own it.
We own it, period.
We control it.
But we only own X amount of feet onto the side
So-
of it. So that's the
So
buffer.
it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I'm
You want,
I'm
you're
moved
saying
by this. I
additional
think we
buffer.
say
You're saying
zero.
additional buffer.
Zero.
Zero crossovers. Zero.
So you're asking for additional
And
buffer. We're asking for
Buffer
additional
and
buffer.
buffer.
and they're going to come back and say,
We want the
okay, but we want 3 crossovers.
And we say no,
No,
no crossovers.
no crossover.
It's a continual negotiation. I mean, and I think a missing piece, and this is especially true until I want to find out what is the limiting factor on keeping our designation. So I think you can realistically say we're not entertaining crossovers until we find out if it's going to degrade our designation, and we need to research that.
Well, if you want us to look into it, if you want to get a consensus, and if what I'm gathering is that you want to now not even consider the concept of even having crossovers,
Correct.
is we can begin to look into the possibility of converting this right-of-way into a linear park.
There you go.
And so it's not a right-of-way anymore, it becomes a...
Correct, because right now it's an
Parcel.
open right-of-way. 'cause
Right.
But once we begin the process of converting it from an open right-of-way
To a
to a
park,
linear
to a
park,
parcel.
which cities have done with other rights-of-way, have converted them into linear parks.
Okay.
And now it becomes basically an open walkway and limited to pedestrians, bicycles,
Pedestrian traffic.
Right, no motorized traffic, and it becomes a historical park.
And we could figure a timeline to get the loggers access, or they can get, give them a timeline.
What we could have traffic studies to show what's the volume of logging traffic that's on it, and then begin the process of transitioning that out and finding a way or finding ways to move that out. I was just looking at quick purviews of other municipalities that have transitioned their roads into linear parks, and they've done studies to show what's it going to take to begin to. I mean, we're talking places where they've taken 4-lane highways and have converted them into linear parks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
did
Sean,
ask,
when the current owner bought this, they knew that the old brick road was there, correct?
yes,
So they bought it with that
With the
understanding,
knowledge, yeah.
right?
yes.
So we just come across as being anti-development because we don't let a developer ruin a historical road? Is that the story you take away from this? This board seems to be leaning towards preserving that road. So are we going to come across as anti-development because of it, or are we going to come across as pro-preservation?
Both.
I think this is still a negotiation.
Oh, I don't hear that
I
from up
don't see
here.
that.
I did ask Rayonier why they couldn't use their network of logging roads to avoid using the old brick road. I just asked because, like the public commenter, I wanted to know. And the answer that I was given, and I'm paraphrasing, what they told me, is that it's essentially cost prohibitive. That's what they said.
Well,
their
they're making
problem.
money on the
That's their
timber. They're
problem.
making future money.
They say that the
They're-
margins are so small that the
Yeah,
cost
well,
of building a
show
road.
me.
I'm just
Show
telling
me.
you what they told me.
Yeah.
I did ask the question.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
Well, we could scrap the ILA, from what I'm hearing, and move towards going to a linear park, where we don't even have to bring in the city of Palm Coast into the discussion.
can I just say, this is a piece of America. They have been slowly but surely reducing our history over and over and over again throughout our country. This is a great opportunity for us to show the wherewithal that Flagler has as a small county to be willing to stand up for what's right for our country. And I really have a problem with letting anybody destroy any more of what is part of history, really, and that we have so much of it. It's the last piece that went through the whole country. The intensity of what you discussed today has made me a strict fighter to make it stay as pure as possible. And actually, I'd like to actually see the buffers being trees that are normally belong over there before they're all cut down and flat cutted and so forth. Because this is just going on. And this is, I think, what I know my constituents, I know that I can speak for most of them that have told me they've had enough. this may be an opportunity for us to really make it a part of America and build our tourism with it too. So the fact that it would bring funds to us for tourism, they just talked about that minutes ago at our last presentation. We need to be proactive instead of reactive. I'm thrilled that you brought that up because I really think that's where we need to go. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Another comment, if I could.
Absolutely, sir.
So, right, as we look at all the different aspects, if you take the park aspect of what you have is a narrow 50-foot strip of land that you're calling a park. It's not really a park. What I think is valuable is an experience, not just a narrow strip of land. You get some additional buffers. You as you walk and traverse. I mean, there'll be people cycling, there'll be people walking, and they'll want to visit this place because it's an experience, not just to look at the brick road. 8 miles of this experience. So that was the reasoning behind buffers being important and not just a narrow strip. Yes, you could accomplish protecting the road with designating it a park, and that's a negotiation ploy as well. I mean, it's an option, right? We have options. And I just want to, express that there are, as we sit down with the developer, with the city, the give and takes, if they give additional buffers, and they come back, does that equate to a crossing or two? And I get, and maybe we look at where the crossings are and try to preserve the longest stretch we can that's possible. But again, I go back to what is the National Historic? Actually, if they weigh in on this, we're almost a little premature without that in my regard because we don't want to lose that designation. But that's why I said I still think this is a negotiation because we have options. We can preserve it, we can add to it, I don't. That's it. Thank you.
I think for now, Chair, the direction that I've heard is to pull back the ILA, push for buffers, and essentially at this point that we're not interested in at-grade crossings. That's what I'm hearing from the board.
I think we move towards preserving it. I don't know that necessarily, maybe having phases, right?
Well,
Getting people off of it, driving it. It may not, you're right. I mean, maybe it doesn't come a full-fledged linear park, but the idea is just preserving. That's how we started this. How do we were supposed to be putting maybe even a conservation easement over it or something like that, right?
The legislature recently, I think within the past 2 years, amended Florida statutes that allows a landowner to impose restrictions on its own land separate and apart from a conveyance. Normally it had to be part of a deed or some type of conveyance, but we could impose restrictions on our own land. There's different ways to get there. The more important thing is knowing what vision we want to implement.
I think preservation. I know how important the buffers are. I think that would be a discussion with Radiant, not the city of Palm Coast, right?
Well, it would be both, but yeah, Radiant's the landowner, so.
We certainly hope my whole thing is what should be conveyed to them and the public should convey to the city of Palm Coast is we're looking to preserve, come along with us, help us implement buffers to this. The county would like to preserve that and potentially make it a trail at some point. Come along with us and push for buffers on your side. Scrapping the ILA, because do we really want to do all this work and then some future board can come back?
Cut it the other way.
And,
Well, that's always the case.
right, and we don't want that. I don't want that.
No matter what we do, a future board can undo it. That's just the reality.
Okay, well, let them do it.
Preservation.
But you make it harder for them, right? You make them go through votes and steps.
Well, that's what I'm
and-
saying is we go and say, I don't want to give you crossovers. I want you to work and preserving it even further on your side by getting the buffers, and then the board comes back and we continue to go down the path of concert, like an easement type thing to conserve it, to protect it, and then work it into a potential trail or park at some point, so that some future board would have to unwrap all that, and the chances of all that getting unraveled are
Well, I
slim
think
and
part of
none.
my goal too is as we go through this process, I see it a little premature. This is part of the process, the workshop. We publicly just, review all this stuff, get input. I would say, my goal is presenting, some of these ideas to the developer, but also, having discussions with the Historical Society, because as ultimately we want to come through with this as one voice, not as a divided community. I would rather have us all together on one voice as we approach, the preservation of Old Brick Road and, what that looks like. So
do we want to workshop this with the city and invite the developer?
We need to workshop.
I'd rather workshop it with the Historical Society.
Yes, yes.
But the Historical Society has made it pretty clear. It is a protected, it is.
But you can have a working workshop instead
Right,
of
with
us
all the
sitting here.
parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the takeaway from Mr. Moylan? Is there a consensus for 0 crossovers? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so the consensus is 0 cross. Is there a consensus to negotiate further buffers? Yes.
Yes.
Can I get one clarification? Sorry, 0 crossovers or 0 at-grade crossovers?
At-grade crossovers.
Okay.
At grade, correct? Okay.
Thank you.
We would ask them to come along with us on this journey and add additional buffers.
Understood.
Is there any consensus for legal at this time to work on looking at turning it
Yes.
into a
Linear Park.
linear park or
Yes.
something along that lines where it gets the traffic off?
Yes.
That's a long term, but I have a consensus for that, but anyone else? Or?
No, I think it's a good idea. Just get started
We've
on
got-
it. Let's see what it takes.
We do have a book from the FDOT on how to do that. They actually did an entire study, and I have a copy of it from 2008 on what it would take
let's move.
to long-term preserve it, and their suggestions on what to turn it into. So they did actually do a study, the FDOT, on it, and they
Specific
they
to
hold
Old
the
Brick?
book. Yeah, they hold the book. The Historical Society does, and Rose got a copy of it from me. So it is here. It gives you how to do exactly what we're attempting to do, and their suggestions for it.
Kind of like a rails to trails.
Yeah.
One right away, the other right away.
So if we could kind of maybe try to get this back somewhere next month, or 'cause it took 3 years to get here.
If they come back with other buffers, is there if we get different feedback on the designation, do they come back for an ask on a crossing if they
I don't think
some
we,
We
other?
also need to know the piece
we don't
about.
need
Yeah,
to, we don't,
that's
need-
right.
we haven't gotten that far yet.
We don't want to interrupt the historical designation,
No.
Period.
and they need to know that that exists, and that's why we're leaning to no crossovers.
And other than seeing or being part of, I can't speak for the speaker, but other than being a part of drilling under or going underground with utilities,
Utility.
I would need to see some kind of engineered report or mention of if that road will be able to handle any type of utility. I know you're saying no, but I respect that, and I'm sure you're right, but I would want to have evidence that
I
it's
believe
not.
it can be done, but yes, it has to
Yeah.
come from an engineer, not from a lawyer.
They're directional bores, so it's not open digs. It's a machine that gets outside the right of way and directionally bores it underneath. And it's, I mean, they look at the soils, so they're going to bore in the proper places where the soils will allow it. So it's a long-standing technique, but engineer can definitely add more weight to that.
Do you want a letter? I know you had mentioned earlier, should a letter come from the board to
Yes,
their board saying that we would like, this is what our intention is, and we would like them to support us?
If there's consensus for that, our department can draft up a letter for the chair to sign to their, I guess, would be to their mayor, regarding the rezoning and the approval process for this development and emphasizing the points that you've made here today.
Yes? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Don't feel
thank you, board.
defeated, Sean. Don't
No,
feel
no,
defeated.
not at
Sean
all.
likes
This is
the
this is a process, and
I know,
the road is there.
I know you worked hard, or you had many meetings, and you didn't know how we were going to respond to that, but
Right.
it's.
We have to wait for the
we gotta
sunshine
wait.
to have
We
these
do.
discussions, so.
Yes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank
But
you.
at least you have some kind of thoughts of what everybody's thinking, so it gives you a
Correct.
stronger,
Yes. Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, unless you want to become the board that takes away historical designation, that'd be a first
Yeah,
for
that's me, yay.
for this place. Okay, I'm moving on to item number 6. Richard, Engineering Department and Public Works 2026 Stormwater Program Update.
I know, it felt like we went.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commission. My name's Richard Zion. I'm with the Flagler County Engineering Department, and I am here today to provide an update on our stormwater program for 2026. We're going to move forward and try to bring this to you guys at least annually, or if not more, so that we can keep you updated as to what we're doing and where we've worked on. So this is just a general overview and summary of the topics that we want to cover today, and just to brief everyone, give you an idea of how we're moving with different items. So we'll take a look at the Stormwater Master Plan, our implementation progress, the MS4 program that we've developed based on the state mandated permit that we had to obtain, some of the stormwater projects completed last year, some of the current active stormwater projects that we're working on, and some upcoming projects that we have planned in the near future. And then we'll look at the work program priorities that we've been working on, the capital improvement plan that was put together from the Stormwater Master Plan study that we completed. So as I mentioned, the Stormwater Master Plan, we engaged with a consultant in December of 2021, and we worked with them on a countywide study that included an assessment of the unincorporated county existing drainage conditions and infrastructure to formulate a Stormwater Master Plan to develop strategies for the planning, design, permitting, fundraising, and construction of stormwater infrastructure improvement features to address deficiencies that they identified during that study and implement a countywide stormwater management program. So some of the objectives from that study that were accomplished was to develop a master plan that was adopted by the board in April of 2024. We've been implementing sections of that stormwater master plan over time. Other objectives that came out of it were to develop a working inventory of our stormwater assets and infrastructure. That's also going to be a piece that we're going to be maintaining as our infrastructure gets improved and reconstructed or added to or even removed over time. We'll keep up with that. It's a condition of our MS4 permit, and I'll speak a little bit more about that in a little while. We developed a stormwater capital improvement program that lists out a series of concept projects that are meant to address specific flooding, water quality improvement features for the community throughout the county. We took a look at the stormwater program operations and maintenance and identified areas of improvement or increased level of service that is needed so that we can optimize our stormwater infrastructure so that it can function better. And finally, one of the conditions of our study or the engagement with our consultant was since we had recently been notified by the state based on a census threshold that we had met that required us to get under a permitted feature with the MS4 program, which is a municipal separate storm sewer system. We added that to the scope, and we got our stormwater consultant to help us develop a plan that the state would implement or agree with us that wouldn't be so burdensome on staff, because it would require us to add services, activities, and responsibilities so that we would have to maintain that permit over time. So to keep moving on, our stormwater program, some of our 2025 project highlights, stormwater master plan, as I mentioned, last year, late in the season, we did obtain our permit, and it became active. So we're in our first cycle of a 5-year permit, which will reapply every 5 years, where we have to implement this program. And I'll go over a few aspects of what we're responsible for later on in the presentation. As far as construction and maintenance, getting into some of those features, last year we had our canal capacity expansion project. The MS4 permit, just a few more details here. In April 14th, 2021 is when we received the notice from the DEP that we were required to obtain this permit. And right now we do have our coverage, and the permit ID is listed up here. And we're just essentially working through the implementation phases of the permit and our plan that's required based on a notice of intent that we had to provide to the state. Each year, we're required to do a few different items and more than we did the last, and those activities that we have build on one another so that we are implementing or getting off the ground and implementing a program that they'll accept. The canal capacity expansion project, last year we put out a project on the street, and were able to work with a contractor to clean out approximately 13 miles, 12.72, of canals that were in dire need of maintenance or this type of maintenance. Our crews do a pretty good job of maintaining our stormwater infrastructure with the resources they have, but sometimes projects like this can really come in and clean out and fix issues that we don't have the equipment or personnel to address at this magnitude. So we were pleased that we were able to accomplish this project ahead of the stormwater season, the rainy season last year. And we are seeing some effects from that positive drainage throughout that side of the county. We do have work to do, and we need to continue maintaining those canals and drainage dishes, and just staying ahead of it as much as possible. But projects like these definitely do bring a positive impact to the community. Some of the 2026 projects we have that we're working on or that are upcoming, we have been design and regulatory. We're working on the Malacomper Canal Restoration Resiliency Project, First Avenue Drainage Phase 2. As I mentioned before, the MS4 permit maintenance program, it's an ongoing activity that we're just going to have to maintain over time. And we're looking at some of our capital improvement program drainage improvement priorities. When Rima Ridge is at the top of our priority list that was developed from our Stormwater Master Plan consultant review. And in construction, as far as we have developed the design plans for the First Avenue Drainage Project, we anticipate being able to get that on the street and advertise for construction really soon. Yeah. Some of the maintenance projects we wanted to highlight that we recently completed or are coming up is we cleaned out the Bay Drive Park Ponds box culverts, which may not sound like much, but they're actually pretty large stormwater features, and we had to hire an outside contractor to clean those out. They've been silted in after some overwashing from one of the larger storms that overtopped the dunes, and we're in need of this type of maintenance. And just our ongoing regular infrastructure improvement and maintenance. So a few highlights for the Malacomper Canal Restoration and Resilience Project. Malacomper Canal is located in the northeast portion of the coastal community in Flagler County. It consists of about 4,100 linear feet of historic drainage infrastructure that services a large portion of the Malacomper Basin, as well as the hammock communities to the south. This project's about 40% complete. We do have some activities that are upcoming that we anticipate continuing with to get input from the community, the local stakeholders. We want to bring this to their attention so we can get their feedback on this as well as we develop the design, as well as entering some of the more critical phases of the permitting, the project, which includes the design and permitting, so that we can carry this project through and look for funding for construction somewhere down the road.
Are we still going to tackle what I call phase one, and that's underneath A1A and then all the way to intercoastal? We're going to do that.
That's going to be built into the design plans.
Right.
So first for effectiveness and then budgeting. The overall construction costs that we're working with right now is about $12.4 million. The outfall condition is the more critical piece of this. There are Bing's Landing, and yes, lowering the cross drain there at A1A.
Right.
And
that's a limiter right now.
What's that?
It's a limiter right now.
It is. So those two pieces are the critical points where we want to start. It's a cheaper portion of the project. It's not cheap, but it will help us be able to build this out in affordable chunks. First Avenue Drainage Phase 2 project, as I mentioned, the design plans are completed right now. We're just waiting on permit modification to get approved by the Stormwater Management or Water Management District. They've indicated they're going to get that back to us this week and possibly next, and then we can proceed on with the next phase of the project, which would be the construction.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Where is First Avenue? I'm sorry.
So
it comes off Malacompa Road.
Oh, it's up in the hammock.
In the hammock.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's where we built a system that didn't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are in dire need of these improvements, and the design will make an impact positively to help correct some of these conditions they're experiencing out in that area. As I mentioned,
It's in the Matanzas. It's in the Matanzas Shores. Is it in the Matanzas Shores?
No, it's just an unincorporated part of the county. It starts at Malacompa Road and goes north.
Oh, there it is, Malacompa. I see it.
Yeah,
okay.
then it goes north and dead ends.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All residential.
Yeah, it's mostly residential.
Yeah, I'm just trying to envision it,
And then one of our capital improvement project priorities that are, as I said, our consultant helped us develop our first program listing. The Rima Ridge East project is one of the ones that we're identifying that as for need for us to look into getting the design portion of it underway and to move on to the next steps so that we can continue to make some improvements out in this region. So the other project that we have that's funded for construction is the roadway construction for Rima Ridge, and it's not listed here. Where we do have some concurrent drainage type improvements that are going to have been incorporated in that project, and that one is funded for construction and has been designed. So we would like to make sure that the systems operate together and solve these issues out in this region. So coming back to the MS4 permit, the maintenance program. So as I indicated earlier, we worked with our consultant and the DEP to develop a program that they would accept and permit, and so that we can maintain the Phase 2 permit operating condition. All the local municipalities are also permitted under this program, and they have their own their plans that they've developed and that have been approved. This came with a little bit, as I mentioned, a burden to us, and we share this burden across staff and other departments in the county who've been graciously helping us with providing their input and the areas that they can contribute so that we can meet the needs and the conditions of the permit, as well as be able to accomplish some of our other goals that supplement our stormwater program. So just to give you an idea of some of the activities that are listed out here is that this briefing meets one of the criteria that we were required to do the first year. We have to develop stormwater-related public education materials so that people can understand, whether or not, they're over-fertilizing, or if they're, how to dispose of hazardous materials, or how to, not dump things into drainage facilities to impact water quality. We are also maintaining our stormwater asset inventory through the help of our Road and Bridges Department, also including inspections of our assets. These are all requirements and activities that we would need to track and then report annually to the permitting agency so that they can maintain our compliance. And a few of the departments here that are listed that we would be working with is engineering, of course, and as we're administering or operating or acting as the MS4 coordinator, the Public Information Office, Innovation Technology, and Growth Management, just to name a few. And finally, moving on to the list right now, this is our current top 10. The list is about 47 long that they identified, and we have 20 conceptual projects that our consultant did work with us on developing for capital improvement. They're fairly detailed and give us quite a bit of information within the Stormwater Master Plan so that we can pursue grant funding. Right now, our stormwater program is largely unfunded, but we are working diligently seeking funding through dedicated state and federal grant programs. We do monitor, the DEP and the other agencies, the opportunities they put out so that we can chase those throughout the year so that we can continue to work towards implementing and doing these stormwater corrections that have been identified through the Stormwater Master Plan development.
Can you remind me again why Reamer Ridge was a top priority? I know the population out there is small or smaller than the others, but does it impact other areas or?
Well, they looked at it as, they did cost-benefit analysis on each one of these areas that they identified, and then they tried to split up different projects into to consider, the regional area impacts based on population and the other dynamics. But Rima Ridge has experiences flooding in some of the areas pretty dramatically. And during the development of the study, this is based on that input from the community, input from staff and our consultants. They prioritize this list in this fashion. Now, that's not to say that we continue to monitor these items over time, and I think that we should be bringing this back annually, similar to our other work programs, so that we can reevaluate and reprioritize as needed or as corrections are being made. So there is an opportunity to reprioritize this list. But that was largely what I wanted to cover today in terms of just briefing you all and just letting you know that since we haven't touched base over the last couple of years adopting the Stormwater Master Plan, we've done a lot of work in the background of getting things moving and trying to implement each one of these pieces and to maintain our permit work compliance with the MS4 program as well. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we're glad to do it because these types of project and infrastructure improvements provide a lot of benefits to the community.
I know when we first talked about this, we had talked about the potential of implementing like a stormwater fee in certain areas. Have we looked at that again, or did we?
Accessible for Rima Ridge specifically.
Yeah. I don't know. It was sort of like was it going to be like an MSBU somewhat, or so while these projects are going on that they could offset the costs? I don't know. We kind of scrapped that idea, I guess. I can't recall. It just went away. It was here and it's gone. But in 2024, when this came out, there was a plan, a stormwater fee plan specific to houses that were impacted by these projects.
So there was a financial study that was proposed that hasn't been performed that was going to look at items like stormwater utility or any other taxing units and features of that nature, half-cent sales tax or something to fund programs.
That was the takeaway from that meeting, was we were going to have a study done to see how they would do it by square footage or size of your property, and then nothing came of it.
Yeah, I don't remember it going anywhere.
Yeah, it went nowhere, but it needed to go somewhere.
Well, how else are we going to fund it?
Because it's an unfunded
We just
program.
wait for grants, right?
It needs funding desperately. You can't just wait for grants
Right.
when I look at this.
We can't.
But there,
SBU would be hard, I think, just because of the small population.
it was like a fee per household, a small fee. It wasn't anything, it was based on the size of your property versus your house, square footage. And it would only last until the projects were done. And we actually, this board authorized, if I recall, a study to be done on it. I haven't seen it.
So if you want more money.
No, we can
Saying
certainly
it
get
was-
one
If
underway.
you want more money.
Otherwise, this is never going to get done.
Right.
These things
Ever.
are never going to get done as we sit. And these people want this done. When I looked at that list, 2 of those canals are impacting the farm guys. So, I mean, they would like to see, they'd like to see it done. And Malacompra, we've been talking about Malacompra for 4 years. It needs to be done. So, in Old Hall Creek Road, Black Branch, we know how bad that is down in there. And now they're anticipating more housing coming in the city of Bunnell. Needs to be done. So, we need to go back to a funding plan. Needs to be a priority. People want stormwater and roads and beach. Nice to have right now. So, I don't know if we reauthorize them to give us options on funding again.
Can you go back and look at some of that 2024 board discussion to see
Sure.
if you can make heads or tails of it and see?
No, I mean, she's recalling it correctly.
She is, okay.
Yes, I mean, it's just a matter of going forward and performing the study.
So who brings that forward? Do you do that, or will
We can.
Adam bring that? You have
can.
resources to do that? Okay.
It would be nice to have that because we really need to focus on stormwater and
Right.
roads and beach.
And beach.
Yep.
3 things, those 3 things.
So thoughts. See Andy.
The only thing,
Don't you
right,
remember that,
that
or am I
my,
crazy?
the comments that I have, kudos to making these resiliency projects. There's tons of state funding, so, and I know we always have a match, but have we looked at if these meet criteria for the resiliency funding through the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When we've been applying for those, I mean, based on, these priorities as they come through, but we usually select projects that are good candidates that meet those criteria, but yes, we have been looking at them.
Can our lobbyist help with any of those?
Pardon me?
Can our lobbyist help with any of those, moving any of those grants?
I don't know. I mean, we can ask, but I don't know that those go through a ranking system and they grade them. You typically to get the top priorities.
And a
Kind of like what we're going through.
face-to-face with a bunch of commissioners doesn't help, I bet,
I mean,
right?
kind of like what we're going through with Bulow.
Yeah.
This process ranks them and
Okay.
funding is granted out that way. Wanted to acknowledge the work right so far that you've done with getting compliance, and then right now we have to do the maintenance phase, and then you've got your different departments that are helping you coordinate that. So just want to shout out to all the efforts that everybody is doing to help you is commendable, and want to thank staff for working with you on that.
Yeah, we have great workforce here, and they work very hard.
Yeah, and Commissioner Pennington touched on my last comment was about some of these being able to be focused to funding areas, to identifying a Rima Ridge area or something that can help move some of these along that directly benefit those people.
Yeah. The Rima Ridge in particular. So
Yeah.
we look at those folks in those communities also with our other programs concurrently. And if there are opportunities where we can offset costs, where we've already got some program funding that address some of these issues, we're taking that into consideration as well. So if there's a low-hanging fruit, we want to knock it out so we can do it in the most cost-effective and affordable way. And with Rima Ridge and the other roadway project coming up, this is also an opportunity for us to pursue that route too.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open up public discussion for the affordable housing and the engineering department, because we didn't talk about those. If anybody'd like to approach to speak on the affordable housing annual report or the stormwater program, I appreciate you coming up, giving your name in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Valerie Clymer, and I am the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. First of all, thank you for taking a look at all of our hard work. And I just want to thank our committee who works very hard. And this year, if you notice, we actually did put examples in your actual packet that you received originally. Want to just bring a couple things to your attention. Recommendation 1 with regards to the ongoing process by AHAC. This is statutorily required. It's not just us asking. It's a statute. So please keep that in mind. And we're looking at how things like impact fees can affect housing. I know we don't have any affordable housing here now, but we have to think about next year, the year after, when we do have it, how do these things affect affordable housing as we have to increase fees for different reasons? And we, as a committee, will get back to Simone as quickly as possible. If we're not having a meeting, we have already discussed that we'll do it by email. So we're already putting our things in place so that we don't hold you up. With regards to recommendation number 3, the support for the Community Land Trust, I understand that you want more information, and we'll get that to you. And there were some examples in the actual presentation that was given to you that you can go back and check, or have staff go back and check. If you need us to bring you those examples back again with more information, please just let us know, as we will do it. But to be clear, we're just asking for support. We're not asking for you to do anything. We're asking you for your support for the Community Land Trust, and to appoint somebody to be on that board and to help support affordable housing here in Flagler County. We need to also keep in mind then, when we are doing the incentives and asking a developer to do a portion of the units as affordable housing, that may be easier than getting them to do an entire development as affordable. Currently, in the comp plan, from what I heard, it's only for entire projects. We want affordable housing to look exactly the same as every other house in the neighborhood. We don't want it to look different. And if you ask a developer, hey, do 10, 20, 30%, and every home looks exactly the same, that's a lot more palatable to the community than telling a developer this whole development has to be. So as you're going through your comp plan, please keep in mind that maybe making it so that it's only a portion instead of having to be the whole entire plan may be an option. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Raymond Royer. I sit on this advisory board as a public, and I'm very disappointed that you couldn't make a solid decision after this has started since the late 90s and you have zero to show for it. We're going into a downsize here, and you're going to start seeing familiar people living in their cars. And unfortunately, you're dropping the ball again, okay? Affordable housing is needed in Florida. Florida is just ranked I just watched the podcast this morning, #1 state for 2 years in a row for failed businesses, okay? Rent right now is 45% of normal people's income in Florida, 45%. That is ridiculous. That's why we're in a hardship in Florida. You need to move swiftly by the end of the year and get something started, at least in a land trust, and get something solvable so you can have something to plan on, to build something on. You have the land, you have the purchasing power, you have all kinds of other projects going on as capital projects, but you're not focusing on what was this reported as a CFO report. Your main duty is to do service for the public, okay? I'm not a big fan, I'm just gonna say it right now, I'm not a big fan that we spent money on a visitor center. I mean, millions of dollars on a visitor center, for what? I mean, right now we're arguing what we have to visit, and we don't have much to visit. And we spent millions on a visitor center. That money could have been towards a new firehouse, but you guys decide how to spend the money. You are the board. Again, emphasize as a public, I sit there and I watch this advisory board doing some great work. I come from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Our affordable housing started in 1932. We also have a Lehigh County that's close to 1 million people that has affordable housing. Counties separate from the cities, okay? And there's a reason why. They kind of like the competition of each other, okay? You just have a choice here because I'm gonna tell you right now, you go with Palm Coast, it ain't gonna fly. Just like the sand project ain't gonna fly. What are you hearing for the sand republishing? Oh, I don't go to the beach. I ain't paying for it. So that's what you're gonna hear from this affordable housing if you try to go annex together the city. Go with your own. If the city wants to do their own, let them do their own. Actually, if they want to do their own, more the merry. More the merry, that we get more public housing. So just give it some thought. Really, think about this. We're going into a downsize, and it's supposed to be worse than 2008. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I got that. Hi.
My name is Carla Amaral, and I just have some thoughts. First of all, I want to say thank you, because you are taking this seriously, and I'm not getting that at the city of Palm Coast, so you should give each other, a round of applause. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing for affordable housing. As far as public lands, you guys had mentioned giving them at market rate for affordable housing. That does not make it affordable. You can do, it has to be for a percentage of AMI. There has to be a time to build, or you're gonna have to give it back. I mean, there are things you can do to keep it affordable, like for only affordable housing, not just anybody can take that land. For incentives, if you're gonna give a developer incentives for building a certain percentage of affordable, it can't be a per project kind of thing. It has to be clear, or else you're gonna get sued, because people are gonna be like, well, you didn't do that for me, and it gets complicated. So it has to be a standard thing for all developers. Chair Pennington, you had mentioned that the affordability period, if it's too long, it penalizes the person who bought the property. I agree with that. Right now, you have 20 years on these affordable houses. As a homeowner, people generally sell their house after 7 years. That's pretty much the standard. So to keep a starter home for 20 years, I think is just not conducive. I mean, owning a home is for generational wealth. It is not just somewhere you can live. You can rent a home. But this is so that you can move up in life. And this is a way that everybody can do it. So, be careful with those affordability periods and how long they are. And then as far as ADUs, a lot of people like to say owner occupied in the primary property, but at some point someone will sell that property. And then now you're messing with property rights, because they can only sell it to someone who's gonna live in it because there's an ADU unit on it. You have to knock down the ADU unit, it just gets complicated, so be careful with that piece. And then as far as the affordable trust fund for affordable housing, Daytona Beach right now is doing a linkage fee, which has gone through a couple court battles already, and it's sticking. And they're using that to build affordable housing. Well, money to give people to build affordable housing. And I think an affordable trust fund should be used for building housing, not repairing stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Outstanding comments. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Hearing none, I close it. Mr. Royer, just to give you some feedback, the tourism center was built by TDT, your TDC funds. That is your tourism tax. It cannot be spent on a fire department. It is solely on items within their purview, and it was approved by their board. Coming back to the board, any other items for discussion as needed?
Nope.
I have two really quick ones. One, the mural will be completed this week. The UV clear coating will go on it. That item, there is a tourism grant for that is on our agenda for this evening, and I appreciate the support of that so we can finish that item out. Second, Adam and I got the pleasure of going to Flagler Estates to their road and bridge group meeting this week, only to walk in and be hit with a bill for about $130,000. They claim that they have decided to charge us for dragging one side of our road. We have a road out there called Division Street, which we only have one home on. They came up with the cost of fuel over 20 years, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, they can't.
So I asked the board, I stood up and said, do we have some sort of interlocal agreement? And they said, well, no, we just decided this. And I said, well, I don't think that's how it works. Thanks for your time. And but with that in mind, there's so much going on out there. There are farms coming in. There is landowners wanting to build on our side. They are wanting us to maintain our roads, the St. John side. So I've asked Adam to see if we can have it on a workshop to talk about all the problems of Flagler Estates because they are creeping up. I think they have like several permits for housing that they're holding on to right now because they don't know how to go about it, whether or not to say yes or not. So that might come back in May, I think.
That's the Wild West out there.
Well,
Not
it
really.
was the Wild West.
And it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to
So
be.
when we talk about
It
affordable
can be-
housing, I mean,
It
there
can be
is an
it
area.
can be very,
Exactly.
they're selling those lots for
Yeah.
30,000 without, without the,
Yeah, the
what do you
St.
call
John
the-
side's built
And
out, but there's
asphalt.
D.R. Horton is selling a very, very comparable, low, I mean.
That's affordable housing right there.
It's definitely affordable, so.
A ton of it.
It's another reason why
A great
a trust
opportunity.
may be advantageous.
Well, I think the discussion was possibly an MSBU or something to that effect for out there. to
Yeah.
get it
Yeah,
buildable. We
definitely.
don't even have a road into it on the Flagler County side. So,
I'll never forget my first real estate deal. They gave me the address. Well, it was 00 in front of the address. I called Adam. Hey, what is that place out there? Flagler Estates. He laughed. Didn't even know him then. He laughed. He goes, well, let me just put it this way. They don't pay very much in real estate taxes, and there's no way to get there. So I went up and I took a sign with me because I was going to list this piece of property. I couldn't even get my car past Division Street. I tried. I couldn't do it. So that is a prime area that it's going to come to St. John's and Flagler working together because the only way in there is through St. John's.
well, and that's the other thing. The police are asking for us to make
There's
signs for
been
no
a
trespassing.
lot of
So
craziness
they can
out there.
enforce it better.
Well, I was
And
gonna
the
say,
sheriff-
you have no fire, no
Yep.
police, no stormwater. There's nothing. The
No utility
services
offices
to,
there.
to even start putting people out there. So
Right.
slow down.
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
No.
no. The problem is the gentleman that you guys have probably talked to, Mr. Tilton, he owns what, a couple hundred lots? He was granted to build on Division Street one home.
Absolutely.
And now, and which we can argue, was that a good, sane idea of ours at the time? But he was granted one home, so what is, he goes and he sells lots on Division Street.
Oh.
The attempt into a developer who now wants to build and is permitting. You know, I'm not.
Buyer beware. I mean,
Yeah,
that's.
no, I know. So it's just an update, though, more at this point, because I don't really foresee anything coming
Not
out there
unless you get
anytime.
one big
We can barely
developer.
control what we have on this side.
1,800 lots.
Is there water and sewer on the St. John side?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there?
they have impact fees up there. Mhm.
It is. Just
What-
not, our side doesn't have any.
Water,
think
water
Adam
and
has
sewer is
some-
well and septic there, so, yeah,
On the St. John side.
on the St. John side, yes, sir.
So there's no city anything.
No, there, and the,
Oh, yeah, that's right, because D.R. Horton, when I did the walkthrough, he said everything up there is on septic.
the district that we went to is known as the Flagler Estates Road and Water Control District, so that it's a special taxing district set up by the legislature, included both portions of Flagler County and St. Johns County, and that's why it was special. But basically, it's an MSBU with a oversight board and has taxing authority. And their assessment right now is $300 per acre on developable parcels within St. Johns County. No assessment in Flagler.
'Cause
Well,
have
we don't
the
really
road.
want to
give 'em
develop,
anything.
right?
We don't have the
we-
infrastructure.
It,
We don't give them
you could,
anything.
we don't really have the ability to maintain all of that out there. But I think it's just a formality of our board to have that discussion one more time that,
Well, the sheriff
We don't
talked
have all
about
these
it.
things.
The sheriff talked about
Yeah.
it at his
The-
briefing
Yeah.
last week. And there's this
A bunch of
crazy
people.
Jeep-looking vehicle that they bought just so they can get into that terrain. That's how bad it is.
People are tearing it up.
And they have people burning out there. They have they have illegal activity out there. There's stuff happening out
the
there.
reason they want more enforcement out there is because the farms are coming in and
Oh,
developing.
okay.
L&M and a couple of others have been putting farms out there. Now they're asking for maintenance of their ditches because they pay taxes on the Flagler County side. And they're asking for law enforcement to come out there because they don't want people ATVing through their farm land. And so it's just this chaos is starting to abound and
Well, it's been sitting silent for a long time, and now it's becoming growth.
Right.
Again, business as well as hopefully residential.
so it's just a brief discussion, I think, more than anything, just to remind ourselves what we think of Flagler Estates in terms of growth.
Yep.
And so that's it. Anybody want to call adjournment?
Move we adjourn.
We're adjourned.
All the more reason.
Did anybody else